What's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome to the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. Today is Sunday, March 27th, 2021, and this is episode number 175. Tonight on the podcast, we've got two homies from Beacn. We've got Craig and we've got John. John, what's going on, man? Wait, could you hear that?
Let me.
Yeah, oh yeah,
we can do your vocal warm-ups.
Woo.
You're just sitting back here. He's like this. He just goes, like no facial expression change at all. Just
So
like I didn't know that's how you're supposed to.
Thought I
We
heard
were
that's
just having
like-
our little chat, but we could hear you the whole time. So.
Oh my! You know what? I already know what's wrong. In Riverside, I have the Beacn mic chosen as my mic input source instead of the Beacn
Voice
that
chat.
creates. Son of a bitch! Well, I thought I muted
The
myself.
developers
Craig,
should make that more obvious.
Craig, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thank you both for joining on this beautiful Sunday. I know, John, you just got done watching some hockey. Craig, has your day been any less eventful?
I have swimming pool hair from when I went to the pool with my kid this afternoon for a few hours. So that was fun. Did the wave pool and the water slide. And he, Dad, you shake the water slide when you come down it. So that may be some sort of subtle jab at the dad, fewer potato chips.
Damn.
Wave pools are dangerous. I don't trust wave pools.
This is just like a little one. It's not like a big, it's not got curling anything
it's a
going on. It's
ripple
just kind of a,
pool.
it's a little up and down kind of deal. Yeah.
Ripple pool.
But he's 9 and he loves it. So that's what we did today.
I've seen one too many wave pool malfunction videos on TikTok to ever step
Right.
foot in one ever again. Have you seen these, John, yet?
I've lived those. I feel like if I go, I get to be the big guy on the inner tube, just surfing over like the preteens on it, just like get over. I'm like steering
all
into
running.
them. Like, time to be traumatized.
You're with a giant tube just waddling through.
Time to help you develop some thalassophobia, or
Oh
wait,
my God.
thalassophobia,
But yeah, thalassophobia.
thalassophobia.
Yeah.
Explain.
Fear
Go,
of-
John.
Fear of like ocean, deep water, drowning ish type stuff. I
Oh.
think.
It's that like I'm in the ocean and I know that maybe somewhere a mile below me is a giant blue whale and it freaks the crap out of me. That kind of vibe.
And also, like, after 30 feet, it's pitch black. Like, you think you can
Yeah.
see things, but then you go down 30, 40 feet and you can absolutely see nothing. I think that's what creeps
Yeah.
me out is how many sea creatures live in absolute darkness.
Yeah.
What scares me the most is at some point you stop floating and you start sinking. Like as you get deeper, you stop
That's where
floating.
you into your
and you
PCD
start
and it keeps you from
sinking.
dying.
Why?
Physics.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't
That is
actually
the
know
correct
specifically
answer.
why.
Yeah, there's some subtlety
Like,
to the physics part. but
Yeah, like they used to have these like really deep dive pools and you go down and I think it's like 25, 50 feet or something. And all of a sudden you go from, like if you just like stay there, you know how you kind of point, you come back up and you just start going down. And I don't want to find out where that threshold is.
No, I don't either. And you make a great point because I remember whenever we would go on vacation with like my family, we always had this thing where we would throw all of the deck furniture into the pool and then everyone would go down and pose on a piece of furniture like we were above water. We didn't have cameras, like we weren't posting it on Instagram. We were just like, hey, let's see if we can live underwater. And we could for about 17 seconds and then it was over and you had to come back up.
Posing for the ghosts.
Yeah. Or everything below that threshold, that darkness threshold.
Yeah, for real.
Well, again, it's super awesome to have you both here. Again, y'all know how stoked I am just to be involved in any capacity, but to have you guys both on the podcast here, just kind of talking shop, it makes me very happy. So thank you both for entertaining this, and I promise I won't make it too painful for you. I'll keep the dick jokes to a minimum of 4. Sorry, max of 4.
You keep the penis jokes.
Every time chat asks about Beacn Mix creates stock, Knackers has to take a shot.
Yeah, this podcast will end so fast. I'm 31 and I still can't shoot anything but tequila. Tequila is the only thing I can shoot.
I can't shoot at anything.
You can't shoot. Well, okay. I have seen you chug a seltzer, and that was quite painful.
We
Is
have
that from the
we have
GIF?
content for we have content for a while.
Dude,
It's been immortalized.
I love a lot of the gifts, but that one, to see you go from chugging to crying within just a couple seconds is fucking hilarious.
It was the dumbest thing. I'm like, for $50, I'll do it. Like, no, who would give me $50? And I'm like,
Yoink!
$50, and I'm like, fudge.
Yeah, never put your trust in Twitch chat. So I'm going to
Who would have $50 to waste on this crap? And then it's like, what? Oh my god!
apparently a lot of people, a lot of people.
Yes.
I'm going to be a good podcast host. I'm going to introduce both of you now at the beginning so everybody knows what they're getting into. So, John, since you've been here before, you're going last or second. Craig, if you could do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then we'll get John in here too.
Sure. I am Craig. I'm the CEO of Beacn, and I generally am the incredible inflatable arm waving tube man of the duo that runs Beacn, which is me and my co-founder Daniel Davies, who does the engineering and all that stuff. I'm more on the product and marketing side and kind of run that whole side of things. And yeah, that's me.
And John.
Yeah, I am the product marketing manager for Beacn. Craig and I work a ton on like additional or like initial product ideation stuff, and then I have a lot of input over kind of just like kind of branding and marketing initiatives and stuff. Craig and I tag team a lot of those.
Awesome.
And I also apparently know Photoshop the best on the team. So
I'm pretty good at getting a Google tutorial and then following it and then being like, okay, now I know how to do it. But then I forget the next time I need to do whatever the thing is.
Isn't that I think that's the problem. Like the awesome part about our life is that we can find out how to do anything online.
Mm-hmm.
The downside is that you will never remember how to do it again unless you do it the next week and the week after and the week after. I do that a lot with video editing tutorials where I'll like, oh, man, I finally learned how to do like an earthquake, like screech. And then I go to think of how to do it the next time and I can't.
every time I have to go into After Effects and figure out how to like edit through a mask, I always have to rewatch the same tutorial over and over. I finally just bookmarked it. I've done it like 12, 15 times probably, and I still just can't remember how to do it.
That's intuitive product design right there.
Job security too. And that is why YouTube tutorials do so well. There is so much replayability to them, and that's why like the cooking channels, cooking and tech tutorial channels, they do so well because how often you got to come back and do it again?
Yeah,
all the time.
Sometimes I just want to watch tacos get cooked again, just for fun.
Always beer tacos these days, right?
Y'all ever seen like the miniature cooking shows where they literally take like extremely small, they will make pizzas that are this big with ingredients from scratch? Not even kidding. Yeah, it's awesome. It is so fucking cool to watch. I've enlightened you. I'll send you some links after the podcast. So you guys were talking about the beginnings of ideas, and you guys kind of like bounce off each other in the beginning, and things turn into things. And I know that with the previous product that you guys worked on, I heard a story about there was a napkin, and there might have been some ideas that were drafted on a napkin, and that
cardboard.
Was to be cardboard. Damn, but then my follow-up joke doesn't work, but I'm going to say it anyways.
You keep going. It was a napkin.
It was a napkin. So my dad told me that I almost ended up on a napkin, but obviously I'm here now, so that didn't happen. Who knows what I could have turned into back then in 19...
Right? Good thing he didn't say that you almost ended up in cardboard.
Somebody ended up in cardboard somewhere, I guarantee.
In a cardboard box.
So can either of you, and don't fight over going first, can either of you give any insight into the beginning idea, or what was the switch that flipped that you knew that like, okay, I'm ready to kind of start building the idea for something new? Like I finally found the hole that needs to be filled, or like I've discovered a new hole that needs to be filled, and therefore like I'm starting in the brainstorm phase of it.
I think that goes all the way back to beginning of GoXLR type stuff, right? Where there was this, hey, people are using gear that isn't meant for what they're trying to do like it's kind of meant for what they're trying to do with it, but they're borrowing it from a different industry, and it's not going super well. Um, and then John and I actually met because I was at TwitchCon, wandering around talking to streamers and literally just going up to people and being like, "Hey, you stream? I recognize you." And this was 2016 or something like that. So it was TwitchCon was still very like come to this thing and learn how to do your taxes as a streamer.
It's
Like it
like
was
the
very much
second
more
one,
like the
second or third.
business of it or whatever. And so I was able to see people who, the kind of fame side of it was there, but not as much. So you could just wander up to a whole bunch of streamers and they'd just be hanging around and, hey, how's it going? And so I talked to a bunch and just said, what's your biggest technical challenge with streaming? Tried to not even put it in the audio realm or anything, and everybody said audio. And that led to sort of, okay, some thoughts I had, side of the desk while I was working on some music products were probably accurate. And then John was on a podcast panel, um, and I was sitting there watching this panel happen, and somebody asked about what kind of gear, that you might need for a podcast. And one answer was Google it. And then John stepped in and said, um, maybe I could take this one, and then, laid it out for this person. It's slightly embarrassing the other person on the panel, I think, but probably deservedly so at a podcasting panel.
I
Um,
felt so.
so
I'm like,
yeah.
you didn't pay for your ticket to come and ask a question to have somebody else tell you to Google it.
You just
Yeah,
got
it
let
was
me
That
Google that for you on
right.
stage. Oh
like,
my
you
Yeah.
could
God.
try Googling it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, website 1, website 2, website 3, blah blah blah. Sorry.
Yeah. So it sort of proved out that John knew what the heck he was talking about. And I came up to him after the show and said, hey, I work for this audio company. We're thinking about making a product for streamers, yada, yada, yada. And he had a bunch of friends that were popular streamers at the time. And I had said, why don't we go have a lunch together? I'll pay for lunch. You guys come and we'll design a product together. And that was the napkin cardboard experience. We went across the street from the hall and had lunch, and everybody literally just drew the knobs and the sliders and the inputs and outputs, and we sort of, it was a really great group, and people would input like, well, I want 12, but the average person would probably only need 4, that kind of stuff. And so they were really self-aware, and it was great to sort of be able to get everybody's input and synthesize that down into something that made sense. At that point, and we know sort of where that product went, or those products went, and it was very much still steeped in using the Lego bricks from the music industry, which was fine. It was a good bridge to get to where we needed to go. When we fired up Beacn and wanted to continue taking steps in the direction of, this is about connecting to your computer for audio. It's not about getting your drums, from the real world into your PA or multi-track recording stuff that's all out here somewhere. It's all inside. Let's keep pulling it out. It came up of like, how do we do it even better and even simpler, and kind of continue to refine and drill down into what that product needs to be in order to give something to people that is equally effective or more effective in some ways, and also more affordable. And that's kind of where it left. And the create idea and the Beacn mix idea very much came from John. We had already sort of talked about doing the microphone side of things and saying, okay, cool. Again, this is one of those, like, you can plug in your XLR mic and you can go through a bunch of plugins and you can do all this stuff, or we could just put it all in the mic, and that would be a good step forward because you have a USB input on your computer. So why not use that? And that led to sort of the microphone being the first product that we wanted to do. And then John had this great idea for these mixers. And then we fought over whether or not there should only be a Beacn Mix Create, or if there should be a Beacn Mix 2. And we can talk a little bit, about that later. But yeah, I don't know, John, if you have any sort of other thoughts on where that came from. To me, that was the sort of nugget of why we wanted to take things in the direction we're heading.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it kind of goes back because Craig and I was brought on as a social media manager after this, which, by the way, Craig invited me to lunch and I almost didn't go. I literally, like, just some random dude from a company I hadn't really heard of before. I thought it was TC Electronic because I was familiar with TC
Which is close
Electronic,
enough. That was
which,
our sister company, so it was fine.
TC sister company under the same thing, so pretty close. And so this is my lesson for all of you wanting to get into the industry. Take those free lunches. At the very worst, it's a free lunch. Yeah, so I ended up taking that one, and then I came on as a social media manager. I like, outside of beta testing some products or whatever, I had no kind of formalized product experience, and but Craig and I kind of like stayed in touch, and it kind of eventually turned into this thing where I think we designed some really cool products together because we just kind of think very similarly about some things and very differently about another. So it's like a very good yin yang thing. And so yeah, so I think that that's been kind of cool to kind of be, kind of one of the initial tandems when it comes to just like shooting for the sky and finding out what kind of like those new products can be and trying to like throw out convention a little bit because I think Craig will tell you like neither of us are the most like classically trained when it comes to like product design in the sense that it's we I think we bend some of the rules of what comes from that, and I think that it makes a lot more exciting products because we do that. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And you guys both brought up like a good point talking about the origins of, I don't like calling it streamer hardware, but we have just stepped foot into this era of content creation where companies are starting to realize that our workload is maybe a little bit different, and that we need things that are specific to us. I think one of the issues with audio hardware is that we are so often compared to the music industry and professional music recording and that industry that goes back hundreds of years, thousands of years. I don't even fucking know. And so you always have this stigma of like, well, I don't know why this company is doing X because we over here have been doing this forever, right? Like we've been in these studios with this analog hardware with these audio companies that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years or whatever. And so you're constantly fighting, even though you're trying to pave a different path, you have people that are abandoning their path to come fucking throw stones at you on your path. And I can only imagine how fucking infuriating that is. So, when it comes to trying to create a product, are you constantly cognizant of those other people, or are you like, okay, I know that we've had this stuff that goes around, but I know with the knowledge that I have to create a product for this particular group?
I think there's a few things. So the first thing that I always say is like at the end of the day, I'm the one on the hook for the decisions that are being made, not kind of other people, right? So
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, I have to follow kind of, my intuition and the team's intuition as far as, what the products we are going to make. Is it right to put in like how good of a headphone amp do you need in a USB microphone? And
Hmm.
so there definitely was. I know that we can, I think in the past you really needed to kind of like find a way to make a consumer level product, but make the traditional audio people happy because they were the ones who were reviewing it at the time. But I think I can speak for Craig when I say that, I think we adhered to almost all of the like the traditional audio principles, but never for the sake of it. If it's
Hmm.
like, kind of like why? Like why does it have to, work this way? Why do you have to like when we were designing the mic UI when we used a timeline view and a few traditional audio people said like people will hate that. They're not going to like that. They want to see the singular meter bouncing up and down, and then you get to like actual talking to streamers about it and they're like, no, we really like this. This is why haven't people done this sooner? And
Yep. Yeah.
so you don't want to necessarily like break, there's some audio rules that you just like you shouldn't break, like imagine putting an expander at the front of an audio chain or something like that. I don't know, like, or after the compressor or something. I don't know, something just weird like that. Where it's like you wouldn't do that, but you're not doing that to make other people happy. You're doing it because it's the right way to do it and not just like the classical way to do it.
Yeah, it's like we don't let people reorder the plugins or like the audio effects because we felt like we put them in the most optimal order for what somebody's using them for. Somebody who's used to Pro Tools will be like, yeah, but I want to put my thing because when I do my, use my piccolo snare and blah 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 and the transients and you're like, yeah, but like nothing like that doesn't matter at all in this situation. So there's this level of like there is a whole ton of sophisticated junk that goes on under the hood when grandma pulls out her iPhone and takes the best picture she's ever taken with a phone by clicking a button. Like to me, she doesn't have to understand all of the things that are happening, but does kind of trust in a way that people who did know generally what they were talking about made those things happen to make the picture turn out good. And I think we're sort of in that same boat where there will be people who want finer grain control that we can give, that will not like our products because they don't go deep enough or wide enough or this or that or whatever. And I think as a company, it's okay at some point to say, that's cool. We're not the company for you. Like, it's okay. We don't all have to all want the same products or like the same things or whatever, and it's like, if these shoes fit for you, that's awesome. And we try and make our shoes fit the most number of people they possibly can. But other people be like, nah, those are ugly. I don't want them. Okay, fine. And I think it's cool as the brand to be able to say to people that that's okay. We don't mind that we don't have your business. That you might find a better solution somewhere else. We're going to try and continue to make solutions.
What do you mean?
Right? I know. Oh,
I'm the customer.
so,
Sure.
but
You're
I think
always
what
right.
that lets us do is say like, hey, we're going to try and do as many things as we can. And sometimes we'll put in like little niche features that we know aren't super broadly, applicable to a ton of people, but it's just that like, hey, 10 people that we really cared about really want this thing. So we're putting it in there, but we're probably not going to put it in a way that would make it harder for somebody who didn't want those things to use, and that's where things go in a different place in the UI, or they sneak their way in a different format than being right out front.
I'm sure that is an incredibly fine line to walk between being able to appease the people that have been doing this forever and then the streamer. And to go back, I failed to complete a thought earlier in regards to making things work for streamers. Whenever I'm sure a company like you, companies like Elgato, or anybody that's making streamer hardware, a lot of the times you have the engineer who comes out and says, well, I work in a studio, or I work for a label, and we don't do it this way. And you just brought up a really great point as far as like the grandma with the iPhone. Like, she just took the best picture ever without ever knowing what's going on. And I'm sure that there is a large percentage of musicians that don't know anything about the mic they're singing into, or the cables that they use, or the amp that they're playing. They know their art. But it's a lot of the times, at least what I see people who are speaking up on Twitter or on other social medias, it's always the engineers, the ones who have the extensive knowledge of the products, that are speaking up. And I think streaming is kind of one of those niches where they don't necessarily need to know the extreme ins and outs of all of the hardware and all of the software. They are trying to produce the art. And I believe that one of the hardest things to do is to differentiate yourself from those other audio companies that have been around. 'Cause it's like, okay, yeah, I understand. We're not trying to make the next best thing ever. We're trying to make this thing. Well, we're trying to do it within a niche, but we're not trying to replace what you guys have done forever. We are trying to create a product that is useful for the people that are doing this today.
Yeah, we're doing what you have not done. I mean, there's no reason why, really, with the resources that are behind a company like it, that Shure couldn't have made the Beacn mic, right? Like, why don't they? Well, because they don't really focus on streaming, and that's fine, and they do have their products that come out. I'm not, bashing the company or anything, but it's just like they're this big juggernaut that's been around for a long time, and they sell millions of SM58s every year, to every stage you've ever been on has the beer dunked SM58. That
Can
means
smell
that.
it. Can
There you
smell
go.
it
I can
from
smell it
there,
from here.
yeah.
Yeah, I have one that's held together by a pipe clamp, and it still works. It's awesome. Our drummer hit it at one point with his stick, and it just cracked in half. It's just literally like, "Bark." And then we like pipe clamp, put it back together, use it for another 5 years. It's when you're in that environment, nobody comes up to you and says, "Yeah, but how do I mute my music to my stream and not to my headphones?" Like, well, that's really just the same thing as saying I want less of the guitar in my stage monitor. It's a similar idea, but you're wrapping it in a different way to control it, and it's a different type of thing. So it's like same Lego brick, but different shape, that it takes at the end of the day. And I think that's where we then don't have to consider, but what about the drums? It's like, no, we just don't. That's not part of it. We consider, here's the workflow. And that's where I think John and I bounce off each other quite well. He intimately knows the streamer workflow. I am not a streamer. I get it. I see how streaming works and all that, but I don't sit down, spend 10 hours streaming, multiple PCs, you know, all that kind of stuff. So he comes in with the, yeah, but when I'm trying to do this, I need this to be one button press, or I need to be able to set up a thing that does this easier because I've got to keep my, you know, my hands and my concentration on the audience and on the game I'm playing and on this and that, you know, and there's this level of like, how do you just make that workflow as good as it can possibly be? And that means not being able to do a bunch of other things. Like, you don't have to be everything to everyone, like a 24 channel
Yeah.
big mixer is trying to be, you know, good for
Yeah.
gospel and for rock and roll kind of thing, you know, if that makes sense, like for an analogy.
I think too, just to add on to that, you know, I came from, you know, a place where I learned how to do, you know, streaming through, and there wasn't a lot of content around it at the time, but I ended up having a 3 PC streaming setup. I had a gaming PC, a streaming PC, and my Mac running Final Cut Pro was my audio routing. And it took, I literally, I can say this now, I called out of work for a week straight. I wasn't working at TC Helicon. It was my other job before that.
Different job,
I
Craig.
called,
Different job.
I called out a
What's going on
week.
your permanent
I
record?
called out a week straight because I literally could not sleep. I could barely eat as I was trying to figure out. I think there's a lot of people so much time and effort to learn
Uh-oh.
audio, and I think that there's. Oh, did you lose me?
You're back now. You're back. You had a couple skips there.
Oh, I'm back. Couple skips. Okay,
Yeah, you're good. You're
I
back.
was just saying. I think that there's cool. There's people who, you know, have spent all this time, including myself, who spent all this time to learn audio as it existed then, and to find out that there's new workflows being made easier and easier and easier, and it kind of challenges the pride a little bit. And I know, you know, a lot of people don't like to hear that their way of doing things is the old way of doing things. I worked with, you know, 55, 60-year-old photographers at Apple who, like, they would go out of their way to not sell an iPhone because they love their old gear so much. And, you know, like, you feel for that a little bit, and like you like, there's a part of you that wants to design something that will make them happy too. Or even make me happy too. There are things that our products do that I or don't do that I would want them to do, but I realize that what I necessarily want them to do wouldn't necessarily be the best super broad feature for everybody else. And then you get to go into the huge argument of like, well, just make it an advanced toggle. Just make it an advanced toggle. Just make it an
press
advanced
and hold, and then once you turn the knob 3/4 of a turn and then do Morse code 8 times, then you can have it happen. And that becomes the engineering mousetrap solution where you're like, no.
Press all 4 knobs and then wiggle them around, and then, you know, whisper a secret into the microphone. You know, like, nope. You know, you're just like, you know what?
No.
Do I need that?
Yeah.
And
Anaxunamon.
Yeah. Exactly.
One thing that I don't know a lot about what you guys do every day, but I know the struggle of I know the struggle of the creator who is looking for certain features to fit their workflow. And I also know the struggle of the engineer who is trying to create a product that can be powerful for the largest percentage of the audience possible. This kind of goes back a while. So I used to be obsessed with these. These are custom mechanical keyboards that you can program. They have little microcontrollers that you can program any keyboard key to any key. The one thing that this setup did that the Go XLR didn't was that I could press a single key and OBS would switch to a scene, and then I could use that same hotkey to turn on my Roland VT3. So with a single button, I could switch to the scene that I wanted to and enable the voice effects without having to look anywhere. I could just, with muscle memory, feel the keyboard, press the button, and be done. Again, that is a very, very niche thing to me, but I think my issue is that I think that is going to be a problem for everybody, but it's not. And that is the issue that a lot of people have when they're communicating their either praise or disdain of a product. It's like, well, this should have X or this should have Y, without any of the data or the analytics to back that. They just know what they want. And so I understand that is probably one of the most difficult parts about running a company and creating a product that doesn't exist yet. You're basically drawing the lines. You're defining what the
Oh yeah.
product does and what it will do going forward. So I can't even imagine what that's like. And not only are you battling the audience, I'm sure you're battling each other sometimes in meetings of trying to decide what is right and who has the background to back up the solution. So I
You
totally
know,
get it.
the personal listening device switch was called Craig's dumb speakers for the longest time because John was
It,
like, switching between your speakers and the headphones is the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, but I want it, and I
I
think
didn't
more
say it
people
was
would
the
want it.
stupidest thing ever. I wanted to prioritize it lower.
That was one of those examples of a fight where I think in the end the feature has been useful to people, but it could have been it could have been a waste as well. And I think you have to be willing to compromise back and forth. And I think John and I do a pretty good job of saying, okay, cool, like no, we'll go with it this way and we'll see how it turns out. And it's okay if it doesn't turn out well and you want to redo it and like say, oh, you know what, we're going to change the UI around that. We're going to move this feature out. We're going to do, you have to be willing to break your own thing a little bit in order, like
Yeah.
break it down again, I guess is the thing. In order to make it
Yeah.
continue to progress where you want it to go.
Well, and a big part of like that feature is a great example too of like a big part of why I was so against it is because I had no idea. I've done kind of the primary UI UX design. I didn't know how to implement it in a way that would be intuitive when you see it. But also like somehow we already designed the hardware. How do we let people switch? And like how do we make those work? And like that was a big challenge. And we went through, I think, Craig, like 3 or 4 iterations, and I hated the first 3.
Mhm,
And then the 4th one, I'm like, I actually think I really like this and I get it.
mhm,
And it made assigning those things really easy. And we have to give props to Luke, who gets these pictures in Photoshop and
mhm.
is actually able to code them and make them into like actual features, which is like actually absolutely incredible. So it was, it is challenging. Craig and I, like we have definitely had our share of our, I would call them arguments. Like they're like straight up arguments. We've had to end calls early a couple of times. Like, let's just come back to it tomorrow. We're going nowhere. You're
Yeah.
frustrated. I'm
This will not end
frustrated.
well. Yeah.
And I think, because of that, we've, made better products and made better decisions. And I think I like to think, I know Craig's made me a better product designer because he's willing to hold his ground on stuff and push back on stuff that I don't like being held ground against. But, and I think that that's also really cool. And I don't know of very many companies who just like, that initial product ideation kind of is just, encompassed by a small amount of people and then brought everybody else. And design
Yeah.
by committee can be really dangerous for some
Yeah.
companies. And so it's, it's been really interesting for that.
Yeah. I think sometimes you can just make that call of like, this feels right. We're going to go in that direction. And there's different personality types will do things differently. I think for us, we've had a couple of products that are now on the roadmap that literally came up like one day. Just, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Hey, Lars, does the chip that does this, could it do that? And Lars goes, hold on, and he goes off and does the math thing or whatever, and he comes back and goes, yep. And you're like, okay, can you, yeah, exactly. And so then you're like, cool. And then a week later, Lars goes, hey, that thing you talked about last week? I was dorking around with it. I put together a prototype and here it's working. And you're like, what? Like how? Okay.
God
So
bless people like that.
right. And the cool thing is that that's when you talk about that engineering slash product thing, Lars would not have had that idea because he doesn't need the product. Like he's not a streamer. He doesn't need the thing that John came and said, hey, I could really use a thing that does the thing. And then we go, hey, okay, Lego bricks. Do we have the Lego bricks that would make the thing do the thing? Yes, we do. How complex is this? How much of a risk is this? And you make those calls. You don't have to take 6 months to make the call. It's like we had a prototype in 10 days of a product that, is not yet seen. But it's not like a giant multi-year project. It was just more one of those, like, it fell out of conversations that we were having around beers at the end of a week of like, wouldn't it be cool if we could? And because the sort of business risk of it is fairly low, in terms of the investment we need to make in order to actually make the product and get some prototypes and all that, it's like, well, fuck yeah, let's just do it and see what happens. And if you sell 1 million of them, fantastic. But if you don't, like, what's the point at which that was a waste in trying that? And it's that's a pretty low number to make it a complete waste of trying to do something new and innovative, even if it's simple or complex, right? And I think that's where, like, yeah, we just, okay, one Friday 6 weeks ago we came up with another product, and now we're making it, and we're gonna do it. And that's sort of, there isn't maybe as much uh like step one, step two, okay, then this, then the market research, then this. And I know companies do that, and the bigger they get, the more they do that. But you lose something a little bit along the way of being like, hell with it, let's just try it and go. And then you kind of make it up as you go along. And when you're building it from nothing, I think that still gives you enough control that you can say, we want it to look like this and feel like this and be like that. So yeah, they
Yeah.
can come out of nowhere, or they can be very like, we're going to do a very big, serious discussion about, X product that we want to try and do.
And I think that's a really big advantage of just like not OEMing, our stuff. And I
Mhm.
know some people, I've seen it before, they still don't believe it that we don't like OEM our stuff, but like we literally have Jerry and Kyler and Lars in Calvin like
I'm looking for
designing the
something here.
capsules, designing like the enclosures, every single little part is being designed by scratch. I have the coolest GIF of Jerry, who's our mechanical engineer, he's in his home with a soldering iron, like literally putting together the first prototype of the board for what was eventually going to be, I think it was Beacn Mike, which we called
I think
Project
it was, yeah.
Stark at the time. And
Yeah.
he's literally like putting this stuff together, and it's not the same as like, hey, company wherever you are, like we want a microphone with a processor in it, and then we'll give it to two of our engineers to put whatever processing power in it. It's like, no, it needs to be this big. Here's where the things need to be oriented, and our engineers are doing that, which is, I think,
Yeah.
also just really cool, and also gives us the freedom to then, we have the knowledge and expertise to go, oh yeah, that board could do that. Whereas if
Mhm.
you don't have those people and you kind of rely on external partners to do that, you don't kind of know. You don't get that prototype in 10 days, and you don't get to be agile in that. And we have to go through, then we have to brief it, and we have to find a partner, and then we have to
Mhm.
meet about it. And, a lot of times there's language barriers because a lot of times those, tooling manufacturers are overseas, and time constraints. And it just like, it can really slow that down. So, yeah,
And it's
we're
already
really,
a slower process than I think a lot of people think it is.
Oh my
You
god.
came up with this idea, so it's June. I want it in September, and you're like, yeah, next September
Yeah.
is maybe when it might, you might get prototypes next September. Like when you're literally drawing out, every circuit on a board and stuff, like it takes time. And if that needs a revision, that's 3 months, boom, just done. Instantly. There's nothing you can do to make it. You can't necessarily throw a bunch of money at it that we don't have because we're a small company. But like, even if you are a larger company, you still have to do that revision and go through that process, and then it takes that time. And it's been interesting to see what people's understanding of, like, wait, Beacon's been around for like 2 years as of 3 or 4 days from now. It's like, yeah. And 22 of those months we're designing the first 3 products, and to put out 3 at the same time was fairly risky for us as well. But we thought, you know what, let's just go for it and see what we can pull off.
John, regarding that GIF that you have, you realize you've got an NFT on your hands right
Hmm.
now. Did you know?
I
Original
don't think
Beacn
so.
manufacturing?
Yeah. Jerry Sodders V1.
Yeah. Series.
um, what I want to do is ask you both a question regarding sacrifices and things that you fought for. So, John, I'm going to have you go first. Can you name one thing that you fought for and lost? An idea or a heartfelt, something heartfelt that you knew in your heart was right, but that you had to give up. And then can you also maybe go into something that you fought for because you thought was right that ended up in the final product? And any of the products, either the mix create, or the mic. Or does John always get his way?
That one's
There's so
pretty
many along the way
stubborn.
that it's hard to remember
Yeah, I mean,
specifically
Yeah.
what
so
they were.
I think the one cool thing I can say is that I can't think of a single time where where something that was important to me wasn't included and I walked away feeling like I wasn't heard and that I didn't have a good rationale coming back to it. I think one of the big ones was actually but the biggest one would probably be, we had about 2 weeks of product meetings about how Beacn Mic was going to work with Beacn Mix, because Beacn Mic has the standalone mix create software for, parity with competitors and stuff. And so like that was kind of a non-starter, but Beacn Mix is its very own product with its very own software and ecosystem. So if you have a Beacn Mic and you have a Beacn Mix, we had this long argument of like, what can you do with it and what can you not do with it and how does that work? And I just remember I think what I wanted to do, I can't remember exactly what I wanted to do, but I remember it wasn't the exact implementation that I wanted. But then we ended up coming back for a compromise a little bit. There was a time where it looked like we weren't going to include mixing software with the Beacn Mic, and I remember that. And
I
then
think that was the one that we became one of those like, no, I'm dying on this hill, like from your
that I think
perspective,
that was
because we
one
were
like I'm
sort of
not
like,
coming in
well,
tomorrow.
yeah,
You know
Yeah, I
what's
think
the
the term that we were saying was a mic is a mic is a mic is a mic is what we
yeah,
kind of kept saying over and over. And I'm like, but other people are doing it without it. So
yeah.
we got to make it a mixer too. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I would say that was probably one of the bigger ones where I didn't get my way. But at the same time, I don't feel like I forced any people who were kind of in those conversations to like, not implement what they believed in. It was just more of we needed a more concrete understanding of like each other's positions and why this is important. And so just took us a couple of weeks.
It's just a couple. You know when you
Yeah.
you leave a meeting and you're really butting heads with somebody else, and then you spend the next week just ruminating about it. You can't stop thinking about those conversations, and you know that the follow-up meeting is going to be coming up pretty soon. And then you get into the meeting and you're ready to throw hands, and the other person goes, I've been thinking about what you said, and John, I think you're right." And you're like, "Bitch, I was coming here to fight, and now
Yeah,
you're siding
exactly.
with
Yeah.
me."
You know how much sleep I lost in 3 days? Yeah.
It's like it's a bittersweet moment because nobody likes being at odds with their coworkers, but you know that you have to be at odds you got to break eggs in order to make omelets. But it's also good to know that you've been heard and that somebody is considering your point of view, because I can almost guarantee that there's no two people that share the same exact background at Beacn. There's going to be one employee who has a certain background or certain skill set or certain knowledge base in a different part of the world, and bringing all of those people together and creating a product together really is, I mean, throw out everything else. Throw out like, okay, we know exactly what streamers want. We know what kind of mic they want. We know what kind of software they need. Throw that all out the window. Try getting 6, 7, 8 people who are all creative and wanting to create something and put them in the same room and make them create one unified product.
Digital room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm actually glad that you brought that up because that was something I kind of wanted to touch on too. But just getting people to agree to make a product that the audience can agree on. That is like, I can't even imagine what that's like.
I think we do a really good job of staying in our lanes when we understand that we're not the expert. Like, I do not give a shit how Luke codes the thing. I only make jokes about should it be a 1 or a 0. That's like the only joke I know is that like, hey, that's a bug. Should it be a 1 or a 0?
Never
And then
gets
sometimes
old.
I know it totally gets old, but every 6 months or so, Luke will be like, it was a 1 that was supposed to be a 0. I'm like, yes, all right, okay, cool. But to me, the Luke gets to be as creative as he wants and gets to learn as much as he wants to grow his own ability to code the software and make the app without having somebody saying, "Don't do it that way." Or one time I took I played Oregon Trail and I know how to code and you shouldn't, whatever. Like just that kind of thing doesn't come to bear. So when Lars made the noise reduction, it's like there's nobody in there telling him not to do it in a certain way. Daniel, as the leader of the engineering team, is very smart and can look into a lot of those things on a kind of medium to deep level, of understanding and ask some pertinent questions and that kind of stuff. But really, at the end of the day, like some of the UI that's in the Beacn software is from Lars just going, well, I think I can put together something for a, the way a meter works. And it looked good and we kept it. And it wasn't like, oh, well, you're not a UI designer, so therefore we reject this out of hand. It's just like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Let's just keep it because hey, the work's already done. So why don't we keep going in that direction? So
Thankfully,
I
we didn't
think
have a
like
real UI designer to begin with, so there wasn't
so like yeah,
somebody
exactly. We have to
authoritative
like
to be
hand
like,
it to
"That's
somebody
my
to be like, here you go.
lane."
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
But I think
please don't
generally
make me go
like
into Photoshop.
we all we all are serving the same thing, which is we want the products to be as cool as they can and as broadly applicable for the people that we want them, to use them within their own lanes because we know Beacn Mix is a different product from Beacn Mix Create and really has a different target audience and is going to do well or not well based on a different tangent to a certain extent, of user than Beacn Mix Create is. The mic's a bit more universal, so it kind of sits right down the middle. Um, so I think that when we get together, often there is this like me and John and Daniel and a couple of other people will have these nugget kind of conversations that lead us to this, hey, we think we're going to make a thing that gets presented, and generally the other people are like, cool, I trust you guys because I don't do the thing, I do this thing which makes the thing, but I don't do the actual thing, so I'm going to trust you to do that. And they don't stomp very hard on if we say the knob has to turn a certain direction or the button press has to happen in a certain way. That just comes with a whole bunch of trust of like, cool, well, I guess you guys have asked a bunch of people, or, that's the way you really feel strongly about it. Unless there's some really strong pushback for some empirical reason that, oh, I've done this 10 times before and it just doesn't work this way. And let's try that way. That leads to the conversations of, hey, maybe we'll try both. And then at some point we just take a direction and go, well, we could change it later if everybody hates it, but let's take the step now and hope for the best.
So I like that you touched on the mixer and the mic and the mix create, because this is something, and I didn't admit this publicly, I don't think. I might have made a tweet about it. So when I was testing out the all the products, I had the Beacn Mix Create, the Mix, and the mic. I had my mic and Mix Create on my streaming PC, and I had the Mix on my gaming PC. So through all of my testing, I didn't know that the mic had the mixer capabilities built in, because my Mix Create had always been plugged into the same computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until after I actually released my YouTube reviews of all of the products that I found out that that was a thing. And so for a while, after seeing a couple of content creators talk about it, and it's like, well, why would they make it available? Are they trying to bring more value to the mic, or are they trying to be more considerate of the ones who might not want the mic? And therefore, like, the products are separate depending on who the person is. If you want a mic with a mixer in it, you can get it. But if you have a mic that you love already with an analog setup and a capsule that complements your voice, you can get the same functionality out of a different device without sacrificing the microphone that you already love. Was that kind of the decision making between having that and not, or am I kind of off base?
John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, so this is about the mixing function for the mic.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a very existential kind of ethereal solution. Two competitors in the industry have microphones with mixing software that come with it. So, if you try to come with a microphone that doesn't have that mixing software, you're kind of out of luck. And this is where we thought we did something better, where we made the advanced mixing function completely optional as well. So you can just plug your microphone in, load up the software, and it works just like a regular 1-in, 2-out interface. Or you can enable the driver, which again, Luke and Lars and Kyler did amazing work to just like, you just click a button in the app and then boom, you have all these different things now that you can route to and from, which I think is really cool. So but honestly, it all came from just feature parity with competitors, and being like, on the one side, it would have made our jobs a lot easier if we could have just gone with that a mic is a mic is a mic is a mic philosophy. But at the end of the day, you can now get a microphone and have submixes with it, and think of what that does for creator audio. I'm thinking back to when I had my 3 PC set up and I had to go, and I was manually changing things in Final Cut Pro, and so yeah, I mean that was honestly, I think, the big reason for that.
As far as when you were making that decision on whether or not to include that with the mic, was your expectation of the response in line with the response? Like, I of course, negativity is more popular than anything, right? It gets the most traction, it gets the clicks, it gets the
Mhm.
impressions. Did you find that there was more backlash to the mic having the mixing software built in, or did you see it more as like, oh, people are stoked that they don't necessarily need both products if they were only looking to get one product?
I think it's been generally positive.
Okay.
I think, like John said, because there were already a couple of products in the market that were doing that. I think if they hadn't done that, it would have been a much longer conversation of should we,
I don't even know if we would
does
have thought of it to do that.
yeah, like does it unlock it? Does the thing do the thing? Like how does that work? I think we're trying to be a little bit more hardware agnostic than like I don't dislike other brands just because they exist. Like the whole idea that like, oh, that's just crap because it's not ours is like that's just bullshit. I don't know. It's so I like to be able to say, look, if you got a favorite thingy, you like your DAC and you really don't want to use the headphone amp in the Beacn mic, no matter how good we think we made it or whatever, you just like the thing. Well, then why can't our thing work with the thing you already like? Like that doesn't make any sense to me
Mhm.
because you're just going to lose that customer overall because they can't find a way to have the things they like work with this new thing that they might like, but they're not sure yet, right? So some of those things we've seen be locked down a little bit or the ecosystem gets too sort of inbred and you can't get outside of it, and that I think is maybe for our design philosophy, we'd like to continue respecting the fact that other companies make cool things and work with them the best we can, and there's I'm sure there's times where it would be preferable for us if somebody had both the things we make because it makes it easier for them or we think it's better or whatever it is, but like if you really want to use your other stuff, hopefully we can find a place, to be in there and helping in our way.
Yeah, I think the hardest part with the mixing software for the mic is, I think, as a team we generally think being able to like feel your audio as you're changing it is really valuable. Knobs and faders and stuff like we think
Yeah.
are just they're just really, so that was honestly that was the hardest thing, is just like, is this a good enough experience even though other companies are doing it? Is it a good enough experience? Do we want people to like, there are features where you can check the feature box, but and it gives people the kind of the feature that they want, but they find like no joy in using it. And so like the existential question
Hmm.
is, do you limit those people because you don't think that they'll find joy in it, and force them into, get a Beacn Mix Create if you want to have a mixer? Or do you, because there are also going to be the other people who won't buy a Beacn Mix Create because they get the software with the mic. So
Hmm.
they have those features and it checks it off. And so like there's this kind of really like it's that Apple question, right? Like what if
Mm,
Mac was touchscreen?
yeah.
Hmm.
Like, there's
Mac
no
OS
reason
on
why.
iPad, you son of a bitch.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no
exactly.
reason why Mac OS really can't be on iPad at this point,
Yeah.
especially with the M series chips. But I think, yeah, and if you've watched any kind of interviews with, the kind of the heads of, Mac OS and iPad OS and stuff, it's just like, we think that these are designed to be separate, kind of features, and we think that people are going to enjoy it the most this way.
Hmm.
Thankfully, we didn't have to make. We felt like it was good enough that we could include the mixing software and just be like, at the end of the day, we know how many people are using products like GoXLR and are trying to submix in OBS. And we're basically giving them that plus a whole extra layer of control.
Mhm.
And so, and that works fine for a lot of people. So it was a much easier decision. And so, yeah, it's just really easy, I think, especially as like a customer, to just go, Just give me the feature and let me choose. And I think that that was the biggest eye-opening thing for me, like transitioning into product, is going, just give me the feature, make it an advanced toggle, make it, make it an API, make it an SDK, let me do it. You don't have to do it, let me do it. To just kind of going like, yeah, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't make the product better. Does it make people
Mhm.
happier? Because the one person who does that might be happy with it, but if you're ruining 10 people's experiences,
Yeah.
giving them issues, troubleshooting, taking away from development time for future uh, features down the road, which I think is something that not everybody thinks about, is that every development time you spend, for that, 5% person takes away from the 95% feature. And you have to balance that at the same time. We don't want to ignore that 5% person either. We want them to be happy too. And we just have to prioritize it. I think we,
And that's a tough one. It harkens back to those things you were talking about the sort of the classic. I was born and bred in the music world or recording studio world. I have these expectations for how this product should be, and my worth as a presenter of said things is kind of tied to that, And then when we throw a bunch of those things away, it becomes harder to swallow. But also, you look at it and go, our products are going to be reviewed by the people who are kind of in that camp. How much of that do you consider for the that initial adoption rate, right? You've got your early adopters, but they're largely driven by the reviewers that are out there saying whether or not the product is good or not. And there has to be enough familiarity or feature set or whatever that makes them say, okay, this is cool, even though a lot of people won't use those advanced features, at the end of the day. And that is an extremely fine line, because you don't want to just put something in to pander to it. Well, a reviewer is going to want this, so we better put that in. It's like, no, it should be there because it's got value. So how do you put it in there with the right amount of value? And how do you not present that to somebody who's going to be confused by it, or who is not going to appreciate what it is because it makes their initial experience worse? And that's where I think John was talking a lot about the advanced menus and toggles and that kind of stuff. I mean, if you think of a Beacn mic, for example, and you go, okay, somebody's got a Yeti and nothing else, right? Yeti's totally been the like, I need something other than my webcam as a microphone. I'm going to buy it. If they've maybe progressed from putting it on their desk to like hanging in front of their face, they sound 10 times better than they would with their, webcam mic. It's a great step. Moving just to a Beacn mic and not enabling any of that mixing software and not getting into submixes and all that will still make them sound a whole lot better than that Yeti, due to the nature of the processing and the capsule and all those things that we've put into the mic to make it just a good mic. Then they have this cool next step of going, okay, now I've kind of wrapped my head around this idea of like doing EQing and, denoising and all these things that it can do. Cause that might have been pretty daunting if all they had before was like plug in the mic and talk, and now they've kind of gone through this little arc of learning, and now they've learned about what they can do to make themselves, sound the best they can. Then they go, there's this advanced button there that's going to let me like get all these cool things. And then they do it, and they start learning about how all those things work. And in that process, they also learn why it would be so cool to have that thing on a knob, and it kind of leads to, the ideal is that it leads to maybe if they come in with the Beacn mic, they're not sure about the mixer, whatever. 3 months later, they're like, okay, now I totally understand why I want a Beacn mix create, and they come and they buy that product, and that hopefully at that point they know exactly what they're getting and they're happy with it. And that sort of can take somebody from a fairly neophyte type audio user to somebody who's doing some pretty complex stuff, but hopefully they've kind of made their own progression through it, that it's not one big avalanche of new things to learn all at once. They've kind of taken those steps appropriately for themselves and pushed those buttons at the right time to let those features kind of come out to them.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially just bouncing from product to product, deciding how many buttons do you make the mix with? How many buttons do you put on the mix create? Can you differentiate value between those two products? Can you,
Hmm.
with, I'm sure you guys had a conversation. I think you had alluded to this in the beginning. At first it might have only been a Beacn device, and then it was a Beacn mix, and then it was a Beacn mix create, and then you like, oh, actually, you know what? When we break it down a little bit, we can actually target two different creators within this one space. And just to kind of put my nose upside both of your buttholes, is that just earlier this week I've been testing a new mic for like the past 2 weeks, and all I had to do was unplug this one, plug in the other one, check the box in Beacn Mix Create, and my dual PC setup was where it should have been. So like I give you
Mhm.
guys such praise for that, because not only are you creating a product for a certain type of person, but it's a product that, again, hardware agnostic. It is sitting alongside the other things that I have, and it doesn't penalize you for trying other things. It doesn't penalize you for
Mhm.
wanting to see if there's a different mic that might complement your voice a little different. Switching out hardware is a little bit easier of a task than it had been, because with analog audio, as soon as you rip something out that's been working for a really long time, you introduce the chance that everything is going to go to shit. My girlfriend, she has a Rode Procaster, a DBX 286S, and then a Behringer 502 QU2, and not QU2, sorry, 502 USB.
Mhm.
And she dusted her
Rolls right off
office.
the tongue, doesn't it?
It's right there. She dusted her office and ended up hitting a couple knobs, and it spent us
Mhm.
probably an hour and a half to retune it back to how we had it. And things just go wrong with analog that not everybody has the patience to deal with. And I know that when you guys are thinking about products and how you want them to be used, you're not necessarily thinking like, oh, every single person who wants this wants a 5-band compressor, wants a 10
Mhm.
band EQ. It's not necessarily about providing everything possible we can to every person possible. It's finding that middle ground into like what's going to work the best for the most people. What's going to work for the best. And a lot of people are going to get angry that I'm going to say this. The audio professional is not the target market in the streaming space.
Nope,
I'm
they are not.
sorry.
We're not sorry. I think I'm a Canadian, and I am not saying sorry. That's going against some sort of constitutional thing that I am apparently driven. It's okay. Like again, we said it earlier. It's okay if these products are not for everybody. They're supposed to be for most people. And if you're an outlier on one end or the other who either doesn't have any requirements at all, and you're totally happy to like flop on your gaming headset and sound the way you sound and hear what you hear and go off and and play, and you're happy, like, we're happy. That's cool. If you're, hey man, nothing is recording unless you have a 20-foot long SSL board with Neve preamps and blah blah. Otherwise, it's all crap, and you're crap, and everybody's crap. You go like I spent a bunch of time over the years in recording studios and all that, and to me, it always comes down to like, yeah, but the song, like Adele can sing into a tin can and still sound pretty damn amazing. So you can, if you want to be as good as her, the whole industry is built on teaching people to chase the gear, right? Oh, if you only had that preamp, here, buy this preamp. It'll be awesome. You'll sound exactly like Adele. Like it's a scam to a certain extent, right? It's setting up people to believe that if they spend a certain amount of money on a certain thing, they're going to win at whatever the thing is that they're trying to do. And I feel like it's way more about the creator themselves, and if they can get use out of a particular tool, whether it's ours or somebody else's, then that's the tool they should use. And we just try and make the tools as easily accessible or as broadly accessible as we can, knowing full well that that does fall off at some point where you have people on those ends who are just not interested. It's like, that's cool. Maybe we will make something in the future that does address that specific person, but maybe that person is predisposed to not like anything that they don't already know. And that's like, you can't change that about somebody's personality, no matter how cool the product is or how easy it is.
I just wanted to be said that I do sing into a tin can and I do sound like Adele. So
Exactly. He sets fire to my rain.
There was a small discussion that we didn't quite dive into earlier that not necessarily necessary to dive into, but in regards to the engineers who have worked in the $250,000 studios with like when you think of like Dr. Dre in front of a mixing board and
Mhm.
there's like 15,000 knobs and faders, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, I've also seen there are some YouTube creators that I follow. Somebody that I enjoy thoroughly, who I don't know if they're necessarily controversial, but they get a lot of hate, is Jonathan Morrison. He's a tech YouTuber who creates a lot of content regarding the Apple ecosystem, and he started to kind of branch out into more of the process of creating. And he has like a separate YouTube channel for like where he creates music, and he was documenting the process of a couple that he works with that was making music, and they were in the studio, and studio, I mean, it was like a MacBook hooked up to an Acer monitor with a
Hmm.
fucking like a Shure SM7B and a Focusrite 2i2, whatever. And they were sitting there and they were vibing out, kind of figuring out what they wanted to do with the song. And then the guy got an idea. And then he pulled out his iPhone and he sang the beat. And then he sang the vocals to what he wanted to do. Airdropped it to the Mac, threw it in, did all of his processing, and that made it into the final track. And that process right there, that brain to mouth to device
Hmm.
to production, is the process that I have the hardest time trying to articulate to an engineer who's used only analog equipment for the past 30 years, right? And a lot of the times that's a hard thing to for like Apple lovers to articulate to Android lovers, is like the time to get to the thing that I want is lessened. I don't care
Hmm.
that it's more expensive. I don't care that I'm more restricted in what I'm doing. The process is now easier. And since I saw that video, I've had like a whole new mindset about how people create products. It's not necessarily that it's the best capsule in the world with a titanium housing with a monster cable from Best Buy that's got gold-plated HDMI XLR bullshit, right?
Directional digital. The ones and zeros flow better in this one direction.
Yes. And just seeing somebody use a tool that they pulled out of their pocket, and then that was something that made it into the production version of the song. I'm like, okay, this is a side of product that I've never seen before. And if you were to ask that person, hey, could you recreate that with any other product? Be like, yeah, I could record it with this, and I could send it Bluetooth over, whatever. But it was just really cool to see that process super raw. I'm like, man,
Hmm.
that's super, super important.
Yeah,
There's
I
definitely
think that that lines up with all the things that we see doing in the future with, these are very much 1.0. Like, you got to have the baby at some point. We had the baby, we know we want it to grow up, and we want to be there to get it to go in the direction that we want it to. And there we have so many neat things that we want our products to do that are like that. They work together, that work with other programs, that all these things that we have. It was just, we go, okay, now we got to stomp on some bugs that we will be unabashedly say, yep, there's been some bugs in the software and it's pissing people off, and we're sorry, and we're working on it, and we're doing the best we can, and we will get there. And the major ones are kind of getting more and more out of the way as we go. That leads to this giant feature list that's like the blue sky fun part too that's coming up, which is like, oh no, I want it to do this, and then you have the argument about whether or not it should or could, or you go through the same process, but it becomes more about the fun stuff that can be added on, or the new intricacy of how something could play nice with something else, and that becomes really exciting. And so I think we're really pumped to see, like, what does this thing look like in 2 years, or in a year and a half. Like, there's so many places we can take it.
it's only been out for 60 days. Can you
Yeah.
believe it? Feels like it's been a year. I'm like
Right.
getting
Wait.
gray hair.
Yeah, right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is
January
crazy.
31st.
And what was our release software version, like 1 point?
Thank you.
I think 1.0.
21?
Wait, 1.14.
The first one that went public was like 1.3 or something. I don't know. We're at like 1.6 something. I mean, there's been like 40 different versions of the software in the 60 days. Like, builds every other day. I mean, because you get to beta test some of the stuff, but like, behind the scenes,
Well,
man,
he
that
doesn't
hamster
he doesn't usually update
Shut
very
up!
often.
Oh, that's true.
Shut
Okay.
up, Johnny!
Yeah.
It's like, I'm having an issue
That is fighting
installing
words.
this. I was on, a 6-week-old build.
Yeah. Why do you guys get your act
And
together?
why
Well,
isn't
why
this
don't you
driver
update?
working?
There's been 9 iterations of the driver
That's
since then.
That's not true. Oh, it's so fucking true. Hey, I can't get my device to connect to the computer. What version are you on? 0.134. Okay,
yeah,
we're on 1.160, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. I have nothing to defend myself in that regard. Sorry,
No, you do not.
son of a bitch. You guys have made incredible strides with the size of the team that you have, and not only the size of the team, working in the middle of a pandemic as well. And so I know that you guys probably have quite a few people that are doing remote work right now. In regard,
John, that's it. No,
Yeah.
John and Tyler. That's it. Soon to be Grant,
Everybody
who's
does
leaving
like
us. Yeah.
I mean, so like we have sorry. We have like a 300 square foot room, like literally a
That's our
rented workspace.
yeah.
All throughout the pandemic, I think outside of the week that I was there a couple weeks ago, I would say we never had more than 2 or 3 people in there at once.
Yeah.
Except for like very, very rare circumstances. I think we did a stand up one day with some investors and more people came in and stuff like that. So like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So sorry, continue your question.
Are you allowed to say how many people you have working at Beacn officially?
Sure. I think it's 10, 11, 11, I think.
11.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
So
a
You have to count
wonderful
the Google
HR
Meet
operations
squares.
manager that's joining us in about 2 weeks, which we're super excited she's coming on board. So that'll be the 11th.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the 12.
Or will it be 12? Maybe it'll be 12. I'll have to do
Somebody's not getting a
I'll
Christmas
do all the
card.
names in my head. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
We've
so
got
I
a
mean
few months to figure that out.
we're incredibly small, but we very much are we treat ourselves as the startup that's not a startup. That's how we did it during the pandemic. We had pretty much all worked together before in some capacity, some deeper than others, but all generally knew each other, got along. The first day of the company was like, hey, we're doing the thing. Everybody's here. It's day one. These are the products we're making. Here's a 6-hour sort of virtual offsite meeting where everybody gets, to eat some pizza or do whatever. We're going to talk about these 3 products we're going to make over the next 2 years. And the next day we started working, and everybody knew what their role was, and they'd all, done all those things before. So this idea that we're like a startup, I mean, that would have taken a year to get the rapport together to even get those products to start, at that point. We literally just dropped in and started rolling. So we're incredibly fortunate that the pandemic really didn't affect us outside of the socialization part of it, of like, I like the guys and I want to be at the office with people that I like to hang out with. And I'm a social person, and I want to shoot the shit and tell jokes and go for lunches every once in a while and, do those interpersonal things. But the work side of it, the only thing that I'm so looking forward to having more time with people around is the brainstorming bit. There's that creativity of humans bouncing ideas off of other humans, because the energy in the room is actually creating this other human that it's like it's this whole other thing that happens with the Power Ranger fist going into the middle and the lightning going straight up kind of thing, that you can't get that as well when you're remote. However, I think based on the fact that we were remote, we really kicked the crap out of being able to do it. But I think we will benefit from having more FaceTime over the next little while as things kind of stabilize a bit.
I am somebody who I don't necessarily believe that remote work is bad. I believe that remote work is bad for me. I don't necessarily think that working remote is going to make or break a company. Maybe it improves that last 5% or the last 10%. Do I think do I think remote work will degrade a vision or a mission statement? No, because you can get a good idea about a person remotely these days with cameras and microphones and all that stuff. The last 5 or 10% is like, oh, somebody responded in Teams with an okay instead of a sure, that's fine. And so you spend the next 3 days thinking that your boss is mad at you, and you're like, oh, like I took that extra 15 minutes for lunch. Do they know, and are they pissed off? And there's something about being in the room and getting the real time vibe off of another person. And again, like you mentioned as well, talking about the energy of a room, it is such important part of working in a group of people. I am somebody who did not like working from home at all, but that's because did I like making a fucking ribeye steak for lunch in the middle of the day, fucking reverse seared, butter basted? Fuck yeah, I did. However, I don't know how to turn the switch off. I will work at my day job until 6, 7, 8 p.m. at night without even thinking about it. It didn't work well for me. So to know that you guys had, I don't want to call you a small team because I don't know what other teams out there are doing with the size that they are. But like, do you think that you could have done it with less, or did you feel like we're at the bare minimum of people and we need more in order to get this done at the rate that we want to get it done?
Yeah, we need more people. I mean, we're at that point now where we understand that, like, we cowboyed it. I think we've used that term a bunch of times in terms of people and process and how quickly we make decisions and all that. We very much appropriately cowboyed it to get to where we needed to go. We needed to be able to just be stupidly agile on stuff, including products that we thought up and then dropped, all within that same period of time. Now we're at the point where it's like, nope, we 100,000% need another software developer who is as good as our current one, who can be can bounce off of what Luke is doing and be in there working with Thomas, who's our junior, who's working under Luke, who's learning a ton. But we need another senior so that we can have these features we want to bring to the table faster, and so we understand that we're going to have to grow. Do we need to be 100 people in a year? Like, absolutely not. We have to grow sort of pragmatically and add the right people and add people who will bring that right energy and who are largely passionate about the end customer. Like, you mentioned the fights. We fight about it, but we fight about it because we both think we have the best idea for the other like for the people, not for ourselves selfishly. I think when you start getting into but I would use it because of X, and that's the only reason that it's viable. Or my friend is, you can use your friend as an example of somebody who isn't you, who might represent another large group of people. Like, that's cool. But as soon as you get into the if it's not for me, I don't get excited about it. I think that becomes tough. I get super excited because it might be really killer for somebody else. And that's one of those, I just like making people happy. I like helping people in general. So the broader group that we can help, the better. And if they're super stoked that they can do the thing, and I would never use it, but I just watch them be super stoked they can do it, that makes me totally happy.
We try not to design by anecdote.
You do sometimes.
There's always people, and and honestly, I've had super large creators come in and be like, you guys need to design this, you guys need to design an interface with 18 inputs and 24 outputs or whatever and stuff like that. That's like a hypothetical example, but something where it's like, and it's always hard when you have somebody who creates content in the space and understands the space really well. You want to listen to them as best as you can, but at the same time, it's like, we don't design by anecdote, and I need more than just I would use that. I'm like, cool, who else? Or do you want to pay 150 grand and or I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars it would take to design a singular product for just one person to never make back and sell again. Probably significantly more. Like, if you want to pay for that, then I don't know, maybe. But designing by anecdote is never good. Everybody has their opinion, and I think the one thing that I've learned, especially over the last couple months, is at the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for the decisions, and Craig is the one responsible for the decisions, and everybody else, we're the ones who have our necks out for making the decisions and implementing the features. So just saying so and so wanted it is never never good enough, because we're the ones who, if we're wrong about it, they're not the ones getting fired, it's us. And Craig is a bully. He fires lots of people.
I fire lots of people.
Shit. Moving on.
John, by the way, I was waiting for a public forum to let you know.
Shit, this is awkward with John wearing the T-shirt of the company.
John, I'm gonna have to get you to take off that shirt
right now.
Nice and slow. There we go. Where are we going with this again?
You've got people that are like, I need to go XLR with 4 XLR inputs. Okay, well, how many people do you stream with at a time? It's only me. Oh, okay. So why do you need a 4 XLR? Well, sometimes I use one mic, and then sometimes I use a different mic, and then sometimes I want to be able to go in the kitchen and use a mic there as well. How often do you do that? Once every 4 months. Okay, so hold on. Let's backtrack a little bit here. So, and I know that, again, anecdotal design, when you're talking to people like that, there are times I even catch myself where I can't even count the amount of times where I've started typing in the Beacn Discord, like, hey, I ran into this issue. I feel like if you guys did this, and then I sit there and I look at what I'm saying, I'm like, you're fucking alone. Delete it. Delete it all.
So I will say this though, generally speaking, there are some people that they just talk. They just want to talk about their ideas. But generally speaking, we want to hear every idea, even bad ones, because really good ideas come from bad ideas. like Beacn, I think I can say this, Beacn Mix came from an idea that I had where I wanted 4 little like postage stamp screens.
Hmm.
And I think we were going to look at trying to do faders. And I think that we're going to try and like look and do these other things. And like we weren't actually going to tell you we weren't going to tell you what was assigned to the knob or the fader. We weren't going to tell you like any of the stuff that we tell you now. There was no submixes, no anything. But Beacn Mix and Beacn Mix Create as they are now came from
Hmm.
like what if we just made a little, you know, like a little mixer doodad. And so, you
It
know,
very much
like
started with like a PC panel-ish level of sophistication or feedback that you'd be getting from it before we were like, well, what about a screen that was actually
yeah.
like what are we missing here? Oh, we're missing the ability to understand all the things that are happening. What if we just put on a screen? And that
Well,
became
and I think it happened too. Like like 4 individual small, like 1 inch by 1 inch screens were more
Mhm.
expensive than a 5 inch. Like some people are like, why did you put such a nice screen on that thing? Or like, because honestly, it was one of the most cost effective options to display that information. It
Yeah.
happens to look, you know, freaking awesome too, but it wasn't like we weren't like trying to get out there to spend more money on the
Hmm.
screen. Like we had like a very I think like pragmatic approach to how we thought we were going to do it, and then we discovered that like, oh, all these cell phone companies with screens just sitting around that they aren't using, so we get
Yeah.
them for a great price, you know. um
And it's
so
sort of it's still the most expensive component in the product, but it's like, yeah,
it's not a
you
cheap
could get
screen,
something
but
you could
yeah.
get something inferior and smaller for the same price just because like, oh, now you get into these specialized, oh, well, they only use these in aircraft and you can get this 1 inch by 1 inch OLED screen, but it's $800 each because the volumes are so low. And then you get into this like, okay, there's this economy of scale that you can kind of piggyback off of what's common in the industry, and then you can get to a price where you were trying to hit it with this theoretical, I can't cost more than $2 for a little square screen, and lo and behold, they're 45 each or something silly like that. You go, okay, well, this one fits more into the ballpark and gives the benefit of it's way more than we thought we could get for what we were going to pay, only because a million other people also use that same part of the product.
That okay, so I'm kind of like I'm blowing myself. I'm blowing my own mind right now. That didn't come out right. So so I was just thinking about like, okay, so you guys probably had the conversation of like what is the max amount of channels to have on a Beacn mix? What is the max
Hmm.
amount of channels that we can have on a Beacn mix create? So you guys have your idea of like, okay, we know we need OBS, music, VoIP, and then maybe browser, right? So like
Hmm.
that's your idea. So you take that idea into production and then you realize like, okay, well, to have 4 channels, we think we need to have this much screen real estate. We think if we have 4 channels, 5 inches will be okay for 4 channels. And then
Hmm.
you go into the manufacturing and you realize that like, oh, they make 1 inch screens and then they make
Hmm.
9 inch screens. I was like, okay, well, if we try and put 4 channels on a 1 inch screen, that's fucked. If we try and put 4 channels on a 10 inch screen, that's a whole bunch of wasted real estate. Okay, cool. If we want a screen in between, we need to pay $7 additional per unit
Yeah.
just to get the screen size that you want. And it's like, that's not even something that I thought about that now I need to figure out. And the amount of times that probably happens with product design, because like, okay, not necessarily that your idea is unique, but the way that you're implementing the idea doesn't necessarily fit the mold of how manufacturers are making products at this time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you use something a little too obscure, you can end up paying exorbitantly more for something that is performing the same kind of feature. It happens all the time. I mean, every type of connector or button or anything becomes this level of it. It's the bill of materials. So when I don't know if you've heard that term before, but that's essentially the like everything that goes into it. Every resistor, every capacitor, the screen, the plastic, the box, the whatever inserts, the cables. Like the bill of materials is essentially the what it costs to make this whole thing, and engineers refer to it as the bomb. When I was first in product development meetings back at TC Helicon, I was like a level 2 tech support guy. But I wanted to sit in on these development meetings. Hey, can I come and just hang out and like learn what happens? And these engineers are talking about the bomb over and over and over again. I'm like, I have no idea what these guys are talking about.
Don't say
What the
bomb on
hell
an
is the
airplane.
bomb? And halfway through a meeting, I have to like sheepishly put up my hand, like, what's the bomb? They're like, bill of materials. It's the everything cost. that is a very crucial number from a business case perspective. Like, you have to be able to make it for a certain price within a ballpark to then sell it for the target price that you want to, because you're looking at it going, if this is too much or too little, you're either undervaluing or overvaluing it. You don't want to be more expensive than you need to be, but we've never sought out ourselves to be a chase to the bottom type company. We are not a, if it's not $99, we don't want to make it because it's not cheap enough. Like, that's not our approach either. So there's this middle ground where you have to finely balance what goes into the product in terms of physical stuff, then what can it do with the software and all those things, and then how much do you sell that for in order to make sure you can make enough money to sustain the company and and keep things going. And there were times back and forth where we're like, we can't get the thing for as much as we were thinking, and it's turning out to be more expensive. It's taking more time to put it together than we budgeted for, like that kind of stuff. It's just the number of working pieces, and all the credit to Daniel, who we just joked that he sends 8 million emails a day, is and that's his job as the CTO, is that it's this incredible process of trying to figure out how to balance all those things and then bring something to market that people are like, that is cool and carries the value that I think that it should have, and I'm willing to pay for it. And man, what a complex, but ultimately I think fun thing to do. But you definitely end up having to push and pull on both ends all the time, constantly. And sometimes you throw out a product because you're like, hey man, I think people would only buy this if it was X, and we can only make it for Y, and X and Y are just too close. We just can't, you just can't make $20 on a $250 product or something and expect you could still pay people salaries and all that kind of stuff. So you sometimes have to go, man, that's a great idea, but it's just not feasible. Maybe if we could scale it up to 10 million units, that then we could maybe buy the components for cheap enough, we could do it in the future or something. Yeah, it's really interesting, that whole process.
Wait, we're paying people salaries?
No, sorry. Well, the one day, John, yeah, one day.
I thought I was just in it for the shirt and the plushie.
Exactly. You got the big plushie, man. That's our big joke around here, is that anything that we need to pay extra on comes out of Kyler's salary. And we just arbitrarily chose that it was Kyler in one meeting one day.
Just one day, I was like, let's take it on Kyler's salary. And then now we just...
Yeah, granted, Grant, I need some extra whatever for the email thing for sending out our promo stuff, whatever. It's going to cost like $65 a month. And we look at Kyler and be like, okay, well, that's, his salary's getting pretty low now. I don't know. Kyler, can you afford it? He's like, yeah, I can afford it.
I think he's paying us now.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
The first time you guys mentioned that was the first time he realized that he was getting paid, or they were getting paid.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting paid, can you guys entertain yourselves while I go to the restroom? Because I have the bladder of Benjamin Button after year 100. So
absolutely, yeah, for sure. We will entertain the stream. What do we want to talk about, John? Let's see. Oh, I know. Okay.
Geez. All right, go ahead.
What is your favorite feature that is on the roadmap that you are looking forward to implementing over the next year for the products that we have out?
Can it be the one that we just put in beta on Friday?
Sure.
Can we talk about it? Can we tease
it's on the roadmap, isn't it? I'm pretty sure you put out that document that has it. We told people. If we told people,
it's on the roadmap.
Tell them again. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So this just went into beta on Friday, but we actually have, I think, two pretty exciting features that hopefully, assuming beta goes well this week, might even be launched later this week. Is we have a Twitch VOD track added to the Beacn Mix Create, so you can have a separate track without your music and or whatever else you want. You can take your alerts out of it, anything else. You can make it just your mic or just your gameplay. It's just an extra row in the Beacn Mix Create routing table. So I thought that was really freaking cool. And what's the other thing that Luke put in? Because we have just a small, really nice quality of life feature.
Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue.
I know.
Damn it. He was like, yeah, I did that. We're like, great, cool. What was it? Oh man, maybe it'll come back to us at some point without leaving a minute of dead air where people think about it.
I gotta find it.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the...
the knob press. Yeah. That's what it is.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, you can. You now can determine what the knob on Beacn Mix create mutes. So
Yes,
like the
which
knob
was
can
a
be mute
feature
to
we wanted
chat.
from the beginning.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can like not press the knob to mute to chat and press the button below it to mute to stream or whatever,
Mhm.
however you want to break it up. And so those are both in beta, and I hope they're going to be, coming in the next, week to 2 weeks. What about yours, Craig? What's your favorite feature on the roadmap?
You know what? Honestly, it's gonna go
Third,
ba right
third Craig's stupid speakers.
No, it's well, okay, I think we have on there that we're gonna well, okay, although I'm not a Mac user, I'm very excited about Mac support if we can make that happen. Um, that's something that we're trying hard for. I think it's gonna be its own complexity. Apparently, the software compiler for the program that we use called Juice can like fart out a Mac version, but then like how redonkulously broken that version is just when you push make for Mac and see what happens is going to be very interesting the first time we push it. But I'm excited about that because I know that there's content creators who are more Mac centric. I think we made the right choice in the direction we went with with the PC support out of the gate, but I would like to see that Mac thing come in there. And then there's a bunch of features that I have that are going to be like my Craig stupid speakers things that I wanted to do that are not on the roadmap
The,
right now. But
the advantage
um,
of, how we don't design by anecdote, we
mhm,
do if you're the CEO.
only sometimes.
Well, that's the perk, right? That's
Yeah,
that's that's what you
you
get.
know, there's an element of it that I hope I do it with humility in the sense that there are times where I just want to know if the idea that I had is actually right or not, and I have to be totally willing for it not to be right and go back on it or change things or be like, nope, that was terrible. But to be in a position to say, I would like to try it my way. And if I have to play that card, hopefully rarely, that I will in order to just test myself in a way. Like you have all these ideas about what you think might or might not work in the world. And as long as you're willing to get your ass handed to you and be like, oh, that was totally wrong. That was so bad. And take it back. I think that is kind of one of the advantages, even just in being a small team like we are, that John can have an idea on a Friday and it can be in a build on a Tuesday. Doesn't mean it's going to stay in that build if it was somehow the wrong thing to do. But I think people really benefit from being able to see their ideas come to some sort of fruition before they're just like shut down on principle or in theory. Sometimes you try something in reality and you go, actually, this is way better than I thought it was going to be, or way worse, and that's something that adding more software development, adding more sprints, adding more parallel development paths, all those things I think can actually make it a lot more fun too in the future, is that we'll be able to go down some of these paths part way and then step back and go, nope, nope, that wasn't right. Let's go over in this direction. But I think for everyone, it's really beneficial when they can see how those successes and failures play out. It helps everyone kind of grow as a product designer.
Speaking of anecdotal requests, have you guys considered making a micro app that all it does is do the record and playback feature of what the
Just a
software
little
does?
sampler.
Yeah. So, like, regardless of if they have a Beacn mic or if
Mm.
they've got a Go XLR or if they have an analog setup, a little tool where you can just record and playback,
That was the feature that I fought for. That's the one. Remember you were asking about features you fought for, and I was like, I wanted there to be that little looper thing in there because I thought being able to play back and hear yourself without your headphones on. And I remember it being a bit of a like, I don't know, is that going to be useful? And then we ended up that's one that I felt strongly about. I think that ended up in there
The
at the
one
end.
on the
That's been
mic.
quite useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we got into a big argument because one of the engineers is like, I don't know if we can bring it back through the
Hmm.
chain. And we ended up having to basically change how USB works for microphones
Yeah.
to do it, which, only so many people can do in the first place. Hi, Timo.
So again, another thing that I didn't even realize until after I watched other reviews, I didn't realize that you could record a sample and then make adjustments to the EQ while the
That was the
playback was
only
happening.
that was what I was so adamant about fighting for, was it has to be real time. How do we just record dry? Because like you're hearing yourself with all the processing.
Yep.
So Lars has to go, okay, what's really coming into the microphone is dry. It's just the capsule going into the preamp. We need to peel that off, record it to your computer. while still going, down the other channel and still processing everything that you hear and that's going live to, all the channels. But we need to peel off the dry first, shoot it into the computer, make that little file, and then when you press play, override the mic capsule so it stops working and stops taking anything in and sends back the dry signal as though it's the mic capsule acting exactly the way it normally acts. Here's this file that's going down that same path, and then put it through the software, because we knew that the simple act
And
of you
code
talking
that.
and
Put it in
code
the
that
code.
exactly, put it on the line. um that the simple act of you talking gives you resonance in your own head, and you have your head voice that does impact your own perception of the way you sound and all these things. And it's not enormous, the difference, but it is palpable. You can absolutely, when you push play on that thing and you can start tweaking things without actually hearing yourself talk in real time, and you're not being fatigued by just saying the same thing over and over again, like, you just sit there and tweak it. You can get it just that is that 10% feature or 15% feature. And I think we're really pumped about that little innovation in there.
I also think we don't make it prominent enough in the app, to where like
Yeah.
enough people know about it.
The
It
looping?
just
Mhm.
in the bottom right hand corner. And part of it is just because it came in really late. We had already designed everything. We're like, where do we put this? And then, the other part of it too, and I know, Craig and I both feel passionately about it. Is like we don't take people through like a new user experience. We don't work with them enough on that.
Mhm.
And that's, I
Stronger
think,
tutorials are also on the to-do
yeah.
list for sure.
I know. I think the tooltips and stuff are like all in now though for the Beacn mic, so you can actually click on the
Mhm.
little question marks and it'll actually do that, and it'll take you to a time-stamped version of the YouTube app and stuff like that. But there's just, I mean, even more. First time you boot it up, set your mic gain. Like
Yeah.
those types of things that is I think will really help people in the long term.
So I'd like to transfer or migrate over into the Q&A part of it. We got quite a few
Yes.
questions. I want to be respectful. I could talk to both of you dudes for fucking days on all of this.
Nice.
It's been a pleasure having you here. So thank you for all the time that you've given so far. We're gonna tackle the Twitter questions first, and then we'll go into the questions in chat.
Cool.
I'm sorry if you haven't put your question in now, it's too late just because of the amount of questions that we have. I want to be
Ooh.
respectful of these guys' time. So we're going to tackle the ones on Twitter first. So the first question from Sharuk, which again, Craig, you had mentioned some about this before. Are they working on a device that would allow one to plug in an XLR mic, but get the Beacn suite, kind of like a version of the Wave XLR? There's your answer. All right, next from
I will no, we can go a certain step, right? We've talked about that we like to be hardware agnostic. We've talked about that we think we're really good at audio processing.
There's your answer. Thank you. Next one is from Kit Gaming. How are they getting on with the other app integrations regarding OBS and Stream Deck? And if I may ask, any other products in the pipeline that they can talk about? Thanks. Second part, no, they can't. But the first part, this is actually, before you guys answer this question, there's something that I want to bring up. And this is something that I learned being a part of, or just like being around you guys while you were making this product. Somebody in one of the discords had asked about Stream Deck integrations, and I'm like, again, somebody is like a macro board whore. Yes, give me all of the things that I can do at my fingertips. And then I believe it was you, John, who said, if you make a product that requires another product to be good, did you make a good product? And again,
Oh man,
me
that was smart. I don't remember
blowing
Right?
saying that.
That
myself.
sounds like a quote from a book, dude. That's a nice one.
And I thought, like, would it be cool to have Stream Deck integration? Yes, but at the same time, again, if you created something where somebody's first thought is, I wish I could control this with the Stream Deck, it's like, did we do a good job? And I had never thought about that before, because with the Stream Deck coming up in this industry, the thought is tie it in with absolutely everything. Give me additional control to the products that I already have. The Stream Deck is kind of hardware agnostic in that
Yep.
sense, because they can build the software to communicate with the hardware. And then I
Mhm.
thought, like, Yeah, how much do I want to fuck around with my audio in a stream deck when I'm live? Right? Thinking from the live creator aspect. And again, so I just like I appreciated that answer, and it was something that somebody who thought was very kind of in tune with product design and what products should do as far as streamers go. It was something that I appreciated at the time.
Yeah, I think when I look at a stream deck and I look at our products, there's definitely the like, well, make me a list of the things that you think would be super compelling that could be done on a stream deck because I just want to know what those are, in general. I mean, because I think of things like, well, I could reach out and I could mute it, or I could turn up and down the volumes by pressing the same key 67 times to turn it up 60, to emulate the turn of a knob. That doesn't seem super efficient. So like what, if there are specific things. So when we get in a state like that, I think it leads my brain at least. I don't know if John agrees or not, but it leads me more in the direction of, well, if we just made an SDK or some way that other people could make things that they wanted for a stream deck and kind of do it themselves, that might be a better path for us to go down rather than us trying to guess what that might be and then trying to make the integration and all that kind of stuff. So I would maybe more lean in the direction of like opening up what we do so that somebody could theoretically tie into it with a stream deck and then let them decide how that should look. Um, yeah. Johnny, what do you feel like on something like that?
No comment. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think I
I
think
quit.
yeah, I think Stream Deck has a lot of complications as far as like what features do you do? How much do you tie it in? Like uh, I I would be personally a little bit bummed out if I found out that people bought a Beacn Mix Create and then were using their Stream Decks to like do things that they you could turn the knob or press and like, oh, then we
Yeah,
missed the mark in our
totally.
design. But Octanus in chat, I think brings up a great idea. Is like, like what about like is there a way that we can support multi-action integration? We know we want to do OBS
Hmm.
integration. So like how can it you be so you press a button on your stream deck and it changes your volume as you change a scene and like
Yeah,
is
yeah, totally.
stream deck the right vehicle for that, or are we actually the hub and does stream deck have to integrate with us?
Hmm.
And I think that that's where it just kind of gets to be it gets to be a little bit more exciting of a conversation than just like
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's where I would all the deeper I would go on that.
It leads you down that path of, okay, well, you could make a button on a stream deck, change a profile, right? In Mix Create. So you could have a whole bunch of levels all set. But what you really want that to do is glide. You don't want it to just go thunk and jump from a whole bunch of levels to a whole bunch of levels. So then you got to figure out, okay, how do we make a profile load, but then actually transition from one profile to another? That is not near as easy as going load profile one, load profile two, and just jump everything around. What's the time that you want those fades to be? Like, how is it actually going to like? You want the sexy version of that, not just the like clunk clunk kind of version. And so those sometimes wanting it to be smooth and really well integrated is that airdrop example you were giving with the singing into the mic and having or into the phone and just having it plop into the computer. It should feel like that. It should feel like, oh, I just set up the scene and it switches and the cameras and does the thing and just whoosh, the whole thing just goes right along with it. And if it doesn't do it that well, do you do it? And or do you start with it in the clunkier way, but then hope you can get to it? And that those questions are really difficult to answer, I think, for what the best direction is.
Right. And then you have the conversation of, well, I bought the Beacn mic that came with the mixing software so that I didn't have to get the Mix Create. Okay, well now I want you to give me Mix Create control with the Stream Deck. So then okay, well fuck, I sold you a
Yeah.
product and now
Yeah.
that I gave you additional control, you are now requiring the integration of a third-party product to give you the
Yeah.
control that you want. And
And
that
I think
probably
that's
gets
where
messy.
yeah, that's where it sits, I think, firmly in what John's camp was there. That's just a bad experience. Like hitting the same button 37 times to try and turn it up 37 points is just not fun and not really that good compared to just turning a knob. So it's like I could see us limiting that kind of experience because it's just not good. And
Yeah.
being again okay, saying, yeah, we're okay with that. It's fine. We're not going to do that because it just doesn't work.
When I'm adjusting audio levels when I'm streaming, I know that I need to turn down my pretzel player to 69 in order for it to be audible but not overpowering. And so like
Mhm.
that visual feedback is what keeps me where I need to be when I'm streaming.
Yeah.
Next question from Paul, aka the Frugal Streamer. When can we expect to see VST plugin support for the Beacn app? And I know this is on the roadmap, and some
Yeah.
of these questions might be referring to things that are already on the roadmap. But if you would be so kind.
Yeah, I think it's in our kind of 12-month goal from launch. So by January of next year, we're hoping to have everything that was on that roadmap in there. Um, I think it's really going to come down to the complexity of how smoothly they integrate and or how things could theoretically break because of somebody else's plugin or something like that, that we can't anticipate, which would then make things unstable. And our whole goal, even though I know we haven't achieved it in all cases so far, is do no harm, right? Um, it leads us to decisions about things like, how do you make the audio the most stable it can be, regardless if the app crashes or regardless if something happens or whatever. We're thinking in those lines. Adding things like VSTs in obviously opens the door for people to do a whole bunch of cool things. But if it also comes with a risk that that's going to blow up, we have to be pretty careful about how we integrate it and how how well tested and all that is. Hopefully it's just like a wrapper that can go in there that is like, hey, these live on, on your computer the same way that any plugin lives in Reaper or, whatever DAW you use, and it's, up to that plugin itself not to crash or whatever. But there could be some more complexity in there that I'm just not quite thinking through sort of thoroughly enough at this point.
And to your point, something that I've learned working semi close with you guys with to come up with this product is there are some problems that everybody faces where
Hmm.
when you have other products that come out that are the same regardless of the company, you're like, man, why didn't they fix this issue that they had with this product? And it's like, because it's an impossible fix, that's why. And then you can't
Yeah.
necessarily say, hey, what's up, we're Beacn, this is the Mix Create, and we have the same issues that these other products have. Sorry, right? It's not something you can just come out and say, but it's kind of one of those like unspoken things where like, yeah, we're also going to fight latency. We're also going to fight
Hmm.
real-time monitoring of the voice. And what's going to happen with the implementation of VSTs in that? The same thing that happens to all the other products that try to implement VSTs. So I know that
Yeah.
that's not an easy path, and I don't necessarily want to call it a people pleaser because again, the same conversation. If we developed a product that requires VSTs, did we create a good product? And I'm sure that's a thought as well. But again, there's again when you're thinking about the engineers, the professionals, the ones that have been using these VSTs for a super long time, you don't want to say sorry, we didn't make the product for you. You want to be
I mean, I
accommodating.
do want to say that, but
We want to, whether or not we will. I,
I'm just
I
kidding.
think
I'm
it's
just
okay at
kidding.
some point to say it. It's like people recording guitar and being like, oh, I want to run through a ton of VSTs in in Pro Tools and realize that like as soon as you get into a several seconds of millisecond area of latency, several milliseconds of latency, you're in big trouble in terms of the feel and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole reason the DSP is inside the mic is so that we have the latency low enough to kick it back to you, so you don't get speech jamming latency while you can also enjoy the noise suppression and the EQ and all that kind of stuff that's in there. Um, I think when you're talking about VSTs getting added in, I think the expectation going in is that they are downstream and they are doing things that you are not monitoring on your own voice. Maybe for like the sake of hearing it for a second, while you're doing something. But I think you have to set those up and not expect that somehow you're plugging a plug-in into the mic. Like it's not going to be living inside the hardware itself and allowing somebody to do it. It's going to be on your CPU, which means you're going round trip no matter what. The USB bus has latency on it. Regardless, if our product was instant and had zero latency, there would still be the round trip latency of going in USB and out USB, regardless of any analog to digital conversion or anything else that's part of it. And that's just something that like we cannot fix that. It is a physics problem or whatever at that point, that it's a hard wall you run into. We could put more power into a microphone in the future that maybe allowed VSTs to live in the microphone. Maybe that's a 2.0. I don't know. Like those are the kinds of chats we have about things. Is do you put in our 8 effects and then room for 3 more, that people can put in what they want. But again, each one has its own processing limitations. We really lean on somebody like Lars, our DSP guy, to like refine the living crap out of the amount of cycles that these things that are running in the microphone take to minimize that latency the best we possibly can. So I think people are going to have to go into an expectation that if they're putting in a VST and we put in VST support, that is happening on the computer side, and then it is going to the stream or to wherever else it's going. And sure, it could be a benefit, but they're not going to be hearing it real time.
I'm gonna shove my nose in between both your butt cheeks once again, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've been testing out a couple other USB microphones, and the one thing that I can appreciate a lot now that I didn't think I would before was that the mic chain is what is being sent to my ears in real time. When I plug in to monitor my microphone with other USB microphones, and I hear my fucking LED panels cackling, or like my feet rubbing against the carpet, having that noise suppression at the headphone monitoring level is, I don't want to say that it's like life or death. It seems like life or death to me. Like to go from somewhere knowing that like I can, when I'm monitoring my own voice and my IEMs right now, I can hear the room like almost as crystal clear as I can hear my voice, because like the noise floor is so low. And when I'm not speaking, I'm not hearing everything that's going on in my room. The expander and the noise suppression is keeping that all down. And that was like, once I took the, I'm sorry I have to say this, but once I took the Beacn mic off of my setup this past month, I'm like, oh shit, that's something that I really appreciate having now. So I think that was just a fantastic feature implementation.
Yeah, it was. We actually filed a patent on the noise suppression because of the way that Lars implemented it versus the way traditional ways of doing it, to try and get it that low latency and all that, which was something that kind of surprised us. But along the way, we're like, oh crap, I guess this is unique enough, and we had to go and talk to the lawyers and figure out, does this actually qualify? And so Lars had some pretty interesting conversations that I sat in the meeting and knew nothing about what he was talking about, like 95% of the time. It's just like, okay.
In Canada, they have this thing called SRED, which is basically like, you, for doing original research, you can kind of get like federal grants and stuff like that. Am I simplifying that? Okay.
Yep.
So and basically Lars is sitting down with one of our like SRED consultants or whatever, and the guy walks out of the meeting and says to, I can't remember who, I think it was Daniel, he goes, that guy is a fucking brain.
Yeah,
That's all he
it's like,
said.
just wow. Yeah.
He goes, that guy is smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Lars
being able
is
to do
smart.
that, I feel like the intimacy level, if that makes sense, rises. Like when you don't have this big up and down between, like, when I'm speaking, it's just me speaking, and when I stop speaking, there's nothing else there. But it's not jaggy and it doesn't jump in and out. It's just kind of smooth and just feels right. Being able to do that in the mic, I think, really it gives somebody who again, it's the grandma taking the photo thing, right? Don't have to know exactly how it works. I just know that it just sounds nice. And then the nice that I hear in my headphones is the same nice other people hear. And there's no sort of voodoo in between that might change it or might make it worse or better, and some unknown factor that I can't access properly to know. It's just, it sounds good to me, it sounds good to them, and it's all transparent in that way. And I think that's kind of the win on that one.
Do you both have iPhones?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you swiped up and Face ID recognized your face and unlocked your phone for you without having to put in that?
Totally.
It's like, again, life or death? No. First to do it? No. But like that experience of just like swipe and I'm in is like, those are the types of experiences that like really like resonate with me. And I think that there is more than one aspect that you guys have hit that with the different products that you've made. And again, they're like, that's just an Apple sheep comment. I know that I'm an Apple fanboy. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about it.
They do a lot of things right. I always say that my ideal product is a product you don't interact with, because it just does what you want whenever you want it to happen. It's fictitious, right? As soon as you add the first button,
Sounds
you
like your
failed to be
product
the
marketing
ideal
manager.
product.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But like, I think you should always be striving for the best outcome with the least amount of challenge for somebody, right?
Yeah.
And it has to feel cool as well. I remember it in some early product meetings being like, yes, but is the button, this is not at Beacn, this is in the past where I'm dealing with, music engineers, right? So you're dealing with these music products, they're for on stage, they're for, making harmonies, doing these cool things. And I would ask questions like, "But is it fun to push the button?" They'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, is it fun? Do I push the button and hear the thing and go, "Oh, cool." Because that visceral reaction is really important, and it's neat to be able to bring that to somebody. That's part of the joy of the product for somebody is when they do that and they have that reaction, we see it.
I fidget with my Beacn mix. I don't have plugged in all the time. All the time. I'm always just
Click, click, click,
clicking the
click, click.
buttons, clicking and pressing and stuff. And it's like it's got that fidget factor. There was one point in a meeting, in a product design meeting, where I even floated the idea. I'm like, can we give this like a fidget mode where you can just like spin the things and press the buttons and just not,
Dude, the
mute
infinite
yourself?
scroll on mice where you can press a button and then just
Oh, dude.
flick it as long
Yep.
as you want.
Yeah.
Great. Next question. This one is from Ginja. By the way, are you guys okay with like another 20, 25 minutes?
Yes.
Just based on the question.
I'm good all night.
Okay, just based on the amount of questions
I
we
got
have
out
on-
of bedtime with the kid tonight to be here, so now I just know I'm going home to a house where I can just crack a beer and hang out. So I'm happy to stay
Yeah.
for next little
Okay.
bit. Yep.
Awesome. Next question from Ginja, the homie Ginja from the Discord. If you could only have the same kind of pizza for the rest of your lives, what would the toppings be, and why is it pineapple?
I am on team. Is it Ginja or Jinja?
I thought it was Ginja.
Is it? Okay.
GIF,
I'm
not
on
GIF.
team Ginja with the pineapple. I am a pineapple on pizza. Although I will throw a curveball. I like the sweet and salty, and I like putting black olives and pineapple together on pizza.
I fucking
I
love
like
olives.
Yeah, I like a meat lovers type of pizza. Like you could put sausage, pepperonis, peppers, black olives, and then I like a good tangy sauce, and then pineapple.
Or
We can all eat the same pizza together. That sounds good.
Yep. Are either of
Don't touch
you
my pizza.
ranch dippers? Do you dip your pizzas in ranch when you eat them?
Not
don't.
ranch specifically. Some of the places offer various dips like Chipotle something or some sort of spicy thing or whatever, and I'll get one of those, but not specifically ranch for me.
Damn.
Not that I wouldn't. It's just that if ranch is in the choices, I probably find something else that I would prefer over the ranch.
Okay. I'm a huge love pineapple on pizza. I don't give a shit. Sausage and pineapple is probably my
It's a good one.
go-to right now. I was a ham and pineapple guy forever, and then some guy that actually I met on Twitch, he's actually become one of our greatest friends. He's like, "Have you ever had sausage and pineapple instead of ham and pineapple?" And I went, "Well, I fucking love sausage, so I'm absolutely gonna give this a try."
Salty sweet's way better.
Yeah, I started doing the pepperoni pineapple, and then it's like
Especially
any
when
combination like that.
when you get the pepperoni cups that just collect grease and they're like a little
Totally.
spicy.
Yeah.
So good. Next question from So Duggar. Having already invested in Elgato's ecosystem, do the Mix and Mix Create work with those systems? I love the idea of physical audio dials, but wavelengths features like submixes are really convenient.
Me. So
You take
yes,
this one.
yes and no. Trade-offs, a couple of trade-offs, couple of like small extra steps for setup. So Beacn Mix will actually control any of the, so Elgato enumerates a bunch of virtual devices for you, very similar to what Beacn Mix Create does. And Beacn Mix can totally control any of those, as well as mute and unmute them. But no like submixing stuff like that. You're just literally you're turning those up and down together. So probably not, like if you're wanting submixes, probably not the greatest choice. Beacn Mix Create, however, we've had a lot of people have success. I think AZN is in chat, and so he's kind of like I can say this. He's kind of like an audio technology software whore, in the sense that he literally runs voice meter, Go XLR, Wave,
All
and
the
Beacn,
things.
and so yeah, and so I can see I'm getting pinged in Discord now. And like there's a lot of great ways that you can utilize, so like what most people do is they use Wave XLR as an interface. They can run it through any VSTs they want, and then you use that one of the aggregate devices as the mic device in Beacn Mix Create. and then Beacn Mix Create actually does all your sub mixing and everything for you, and actually is transmitting all your audio. So really, at the end of the day, Wavelink is just your microphone chain, and
Mhm.
VST hosting stuff until we get VSTs in there, and then it'll just be your audio interface.
So I'm somebody who had been testing out the Elgato Wave 3 with both the Beacn Mix and the Beacn Mix Create. And just like John said, I was using the Elgato mic as a mic chain, not using the mixer software as well. You know, is it cool to have some of the dials on the microphone itself? Yeah, but again, how often are you making those modifications live or while you're making content at the time? So it's really like it's a balance of what do you want anecdotally as a content creator, and what features are you okay being baked into the software that can just be accessed later. And again, props to just being able to like swap in that microphone and be able to use it with the other hardware, because not everybody is going to be sold on a 100% Beacn lineup. You're right.
Totally.
Regardless of all your products being great, the idea of having an ecosystem of one brand, like, wait, hold on a minute. I gotta get something. I gotta get something else in here. I can't all just have products from one company. You kidding me?
You can drink the Kool-Aid if you want, but you don't have to. I think that'll be our mantra going forward. Like I said, I respect the hell out of lots of companies that make cool things. The idea that you're trying to always push out everyone else to try and then sell everything of your own. I don't like that vibe that much. I think that there's lots of cool people and lots of cool things in the world that we can help work together. And if somebody does want to come in on board and only own Beacn stuff, well, hopefully we can make that happen too. But I don't think it should be our expectation for like we're only successful if that's the case.
And there
Yeah.
is, like there definitely is a limitation. And when you create all of the hardware and all the solutions, it makes it easier to have them work together really well. But at the same time, like, I don't think that we want to, like, I think we don't ever want to kind of like what's the right word, of like create an obstacle for other products to work with ours just so we can sell more
Mhm.
whatevers. It's actually kind of funny. One of the scariest things when developing Beacn Mix Create is that we actually didn't know if it would work. And there was a time where we didn't actually think that we could actually route microphones through it, and the product was
Yeah.
almost dead in the water. We're just like, well, we
Wow.
can't. Like, it's like, well, what do we
Yeah.
do? We've been working on this for 18 months, and um, we can't do it. And then we figured out what it was, and then it ended up being a greater feature than we thought it was. And now we're like, oh, you can just check as many of these as you want. You can have multiple microphones. Oh, this is
Mhm.
this is even better than what we were kind of hoping out of it in kind of our MVP, minimum viable product, of that. So that was a terrifying week. I don't think I slept much that week.
So and just add a little bit of additional context to that too. I game and stream on Windows, and then everything else is on Mac. I have all my Beacn hardware on my Windows stuff, and then I have the Wave XLR using the Wavelink mixing software on my Mac. When I'm sitting there editing, watching movies, I don't feel like I need the at my fingertips control. I don't need the dials. I don't need the real-time visual of what's going on the screen. But when I'm live, I need that. When something happens, I need to get to it right then. There's no time to waste, and I go to it. And I think that when you're considering products, or when you're considering like making products integrate with other things, you have to consider your situation of like, what am I actually looking for, and can the product that I'm looking at provide what I need? Would the Beacn stuff be great on the Mac? Absolutely, can't wait for it. But that's another thing that you can kind of look at is like, well, if I'm not a streamer, or I'm not a content creator, is it something that's super super important to me at this time? So next
Definitely
question
interesting point.
from Aron's. How can we get our hands on a plushie?
Aha. Well, so yeah, Hilbo, you've got yours there. I have a few in the cabinet. We essentially made some at the beginning, some unspecified number. And yeah, just so people know the story of it. The Hilbo that John has behind him is one of two. I have the other one in the office in Victoria. He's in San Jose. And when we first started, he was the only remote employee. So we decided that it would be cool if we got this prototype made of the what we were going to make into a smaller plushie, but we got these larger ones made, and we got two of them made, so one could live at his place and one could live at our place, and kind of tie us together in that way. So that's where the big guy comes from. When we won't be making giant ones, I don't think, in the future like those. But the little guys, we basically had one run and tried to give as many away as we could with the first bunch of orders that went out. That was another one of those things that cacked up a little bit on us, and sometimes they went in different orders than we were hoping to, and technical glitches and all those things. But generally, they went out in that first chunk of orders, and up to a certain number, and then we ran out. I have a few in the warehouse, but it's not enough that we could ever sort of right now put them up for sale or anything like that. I think the goal for Hilbo and for other of that as of yet unnamed species, kind of like Yoda doesn't actually have a species, right? Just the names.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's Grigo. Anyways,
Grogu.
Grogu. Sorry. So there's Yoda and Grogu. That I think we're going down that same path of there will be other characters that will have a different name from Hilbo. They'll be part of the same kind of whatever little species it is, and will be fun. And then we may or may not sell them. We may do a, hey, this weekend you get one if you buy a thing, or something like that. So we don't really have super concrete plans other than that they're fun and we like to do them. And it's definitely much to John's chagrin, who's like, I do not want to be about the cartoon character for this company. And then everybody loves Hilbo, and it's really funny.
So to be fair, I love Hilbo, and I'm the first person who pitched having a mascot for our company. I just said I don't want to be the cartoon audio company.
Yes, yeah.
And that I didn't want to launch a line of plushies along the side of really serious products. And so we really like Hilbo. We know a lot of people really like Hilbo and think that they're really cute. And you'll see more of them. Dogs love them. And so, yeah, so you'll definitely see more. And I think we've got a lot of really great ideas for it. We just don't want if we've spent the last 2 years making these audio products and then we end up being a Hilbo plushie company, I'm going to be really pissed.
Yeah, that would not work out in the way we were hoping. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, it's you're going to see more Hilbo. I love the idea of doing special edition ones.
Mm-hmm.
It would be pretty cool if we could make 500 for TwitchCon, and you could have a Twitch purple Hilbo. I think that there's I'm sorry if I said too much, Craig. We haven't planned anything on that, but now
no,
we
have not.
But now you have.
There may be other ideas for TwitchCon that we're going to be at, which is cool,
dude.
I think that is one of the questions.
Hide them around the venue, and whoever finds them gets Beacn products.
Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to release Hilbo as a non-fungible token, using 1,000 different randomized traits.
But at the same time, it's okay, you don't want to be a cartoon or a mascot company. Although, our target market is streamers that fill the room with Funko Pops. Right? So it's is it all?
It's not lost on us that if there's a Hilbo in the background, it benefits Beacn. I mean, come on.
We want you to want Hilbo, but by making Hilbo, I think, a little bit less in the forefront, it just kind of makes you want it more, doesn't it?
Kind of does.
Imagine if we came out with 10 different, we ordered 500 of 10 different styles of Hilbo and put that up. People wouldn't want Hilbo.
If we're anywhere and my girlfriend sees a mystery box, where it's oh, there's 10 different variations of this thing that comes in this box, she's just oh, I gotta buy it. So
she's got a gambling problem.
She might.
Get help.
Real world loot boxes. Yeah. I think eventually we'd like it so that anybody who does want to have one can get one. We just gotta, like everything else, ramp up into that ability. I mean, we can't even get enough Beacn Mix Creates for everyone to have one, let alone Hilbos at this point. So
we will stop developing Beacn Mix Creates. So
exactly.
We can make Hilbos.
Yeah.
Now let me know how you feel about that, chat.
Yeah. Thank goodness, different factories.
Next question from Tommy Pervin. Hey guys, glad to see you. Quick question: do you have any date for a South America release for the Beacn products? And I think there was an emote code at the end of that question.
So, sort of yes and no, in the sense that we actually set up the company not to be traditionally distributed. So our goal was not to be, at least in the first part of the company, to be in the Best Buy, to be at the, distributed by XYZ distributors in all the countries. The goal was to fulfill through our website and then grow ourselves. So we essentially, the way that it works for us is, and just for people who might not know, we run through the website. We run with what's called a third-party logistics company, or a 3PL. It's a warehouse that we have in Indiana, and they're a really cool partner for us. They ship everything worldwide. That comes with its own challenges. We had some really shitty times with the partner on top of that partner not working out so well for us, and we really felt terribly about that. We sort of changed tacks on that as we went. But the goal would be that instead of saying, "Hey, South American distribution company who wants to take a whole bunch of the profit off the top in order to distribute our products," is that we would rather find a 3PL who works out of South America that could put our products in their warehouse, and we would just fulfill ourselves in that country. Same with UK, EU. We're working on that as well. We know that it's, kind of a pain in the butt to get things over there, and that's another large part of the market. So the goal would be for us to kind of grow our own partnership distribution ourselves over time, in just kind of a less traditional way, and it allows us to try and keep some of those middle people out of the process, so that we can keep prices where we want them, to be sustainable. And eventually, I mean, hey, if the Best Buy of the world came along and it could work for everybody, of course we would say, yeah, I would love to somebody to be able to run down to a Best Buy and buy a Beacn mic. I'm not going to say no to it, but we wanted the company to be able to survive without any of that. So the goal for expansion into other countries is to try and make sure that we have the best ability to handle the logistics of getting stuff to people in a reasonable time for reasonable prices and all that kind of stuff. That one of the biggest challenges is stuff like reverse logistics. What the hell happens when the thing breaks and you need to send it back? It's way easier to get it somewhere than it is to get it back. So those
Good
kinds
thing
of
our products
challenges are
never
so,
break.
You heard
that
it here, folks.
right, yeah, guaranteed 1000%. It happens, right? There's like, you mass manufacture anything and things go wrong. And so we have to figure out, like, what's the best customer experience without it being, I mean, at this point, sometimes we're internationally shipping returns back. Like, that's painful for everybody, in that
Especially Kyler's
process.
salary.
Yeah, Kyler's salary. Yeah, for sure. But the cool thing is, on the flip side of that, we were able to fire up a company with international distribution, in quotes, right? Where most people in most
Almost
countries,
80 countries. I think
yeah,
we have 80 countries we can ship to 60
yeah,
days after launch.
yeah. And you're like, with 11 people or 12 people on the team, we don't have a logistics person. I mean, if anybody's sent in a customer service ticket, they may have had, customer service CEO answer them at this point with
They talk to
orders
you
and
or
things.
Grant.
Yeah, they're talking to me, your Grant. So there's kinks we're working out, but the fact that we could do that with so few people and just picking some partners that are good at that, like, one of the key things for us is that not everybody has to be an expert at everything. It's like, we find people who are really great at running a warehouse and sending product out, and do it for 20 other companies that are either bigger or smaller than us on Shopify or wherever it is that they're running. They already know that shtick, and we just have to hone it in based on what we're looking for. So we've made so many changes rolling to the way things of all those work, and all of the timings and that kind of stuff. But over time, I think we'll continue to use external talented partners to do things that otherwise might have been part of the big company as a whole. And then when it comes to a point where we need to bring something in to do that, then obviously we will, if it makes sense for somebody to have their full-time gig, doing that thing. But right now it seems like there are experts out there that we'd rather partner with, than to try and do it all ourselves. And that's been, it's been quite an interesting, that's been the steepest learning curve. We know how to make products. We know how to kind of get the word out there, but the whole, like, how do we get the products? That was something we kind of took a bit for granted from our last situation that we were in, where there was an infrastructure there. And it was very much that traditional, like, the sales guy's going to go to Guitar Center and going to demo the product for them and see if they'll buy 300. It's interesting for us because there isn't any of that. There's none of this, like, try and get somebody to buy a bunch ahead of time thing and then consider that a win and then not care if they actually sell out of the store. Our sales are all one-to-one. When somebody buys it, there's a person on the other end of that. Like, that's really cool. We can actually, like, each order represents a direct customer, which is quite neat.
I also can't imagine having to go to a Guitar Center and demo a Beacn Mix Create to Ricky Sticks, who was the guitar tech of like fucking Journey
Right.
for 30 years. Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck do I need this for?
And how do I
We
sell it,
actually
right?
the idea is to set up a Beacn Mix Create in the guitar section, and then as soon as someone starts playing Stairway to Heaven, you just turn
it
it
down.
That's
down.
the one Stream Deck integration
Yeah.
you're willing to do is the Stairway to Heaven
Yeah.
mute button.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, next question from Ernst Blofield. Hi, yes, your weird niche user here. Any update on the 4800
I'm
kilohertz
just kidding.
or 4800
Yeah.
hertz sample rate
48
fix?
kilohertz.
Yo,
I'm just kidding, Ernst.
Yeah, we want people to be able to choose 48K. It's causing
Super soon.
incompatibility with other programs, and we want people to be able to use it. So it will go in there for sure. I don't think we have a specific date on it. We have to get the control put into it, but it's in a sprint that's coming up fairly soon.
I will say this: it's on my top 3 list to discuss tomorrow.
Yeah.
At our kind of backlog meeting. As something that I think like was at the top of our list, and I think it just kind of like flew under the radar as we switched systems.
Mhm.
There is a workaround, I believe, where you can actually load up the ASIO stems in a DAW like Reaper,
Mhm.
and I think you can actually change the sample rate of the mix create stems right from within the DAW. If Thomas or Tyler are in chat, they can confirm that for me. So obviously that's not a long-term everybody solution, but Ernst, you're a smart guy. Surprised you don't know that already. No, just kidding. And you're also in the internal Discord. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so yes, you can. Tyler is confirmed. You can DM him on Discord or at him, and he can show you how. But that is something that is I think a very high priority.
next question from John Quattro. What has you all the most excited now that you are well into the launch?
I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, just where we can take these things. I have so many things that I want to see these be able to do, and I know John does as well. And some of them are subtle, and some of them are big integrations with stuff. Just, um, we have a screen. Screens can show lots of things, that kind of stuff. But we have some of the ways that we've implemented the technology. We're looking at like how would we completely throw that out and do it again in a different way so that we could show things differently on the screen. Because right now we're a little limited in the nature of the way that the information is passed to the screens, and we want to make it more fluid if we can, and not in the sense that the user feels something's not. But we couldn't play a full motion video streaming on the screens with the way that the software is set up for them. The screens could
Can play
handle it.
Skyrim on it though.
Exactly. But if we can, we're looking at how to change things over time such that we can add more information. It would be cool to show things about your stream or whatever on the screen, or things about your music or things like that. Like I think there's a lot of places that we could do those little integrations to do it, but a lot of them require some fundamental change that's not tiny. It's not an inconsequential amount of thing. Just be oh just after 5 minutes of not touching it, just make it the Spotify interface so I can see my album cover and all the stuff going across. It's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll say, so see you in 6 months. Like,
Yeah, right. Because Spotify integration has always been smooth.
yeah, exactly. So I think I'm most excited about we are going to make the experience better and better and better as we go, which kind of arcs out with you. The early adopters are going to see a lot of change over time, that somebody who comes into the product in 6 months from now, who might not be as sophisticated a user, hopefully has a better experience than they maybe would right now. And we're kind of working towards, kind of improving that whole thing as we go. I'm really excited about that kind of thing. Cool tutorials and cool getting onboarding stuff and like all that kind of stuff. John,
I
what about
am
you?
most excited. There's 2 things. Number 1, I'm excited. I don't think it's gonna be this year, but I want to throw a banging TwitchCon party someday, and so I would really love for that to be a thing. But
Kyler's
Please tell me beer pong will be there.
getting out of control here.
so the other thing is, and I can't talk about it, but like obviously we are working on future products, and there's 2 products in there that I'm really freaking excited about. That I think people are going to be very surprised by. We have a really we have a really creative group of people, I think, who have like really high aspirations for designing
Mhm.
products and like, just kind of turning things on their head of like what we're kind of used to doing and simplifying content creation audio and streaming audio. And so there's a few in there that we've put out feelers with some of we have a close knit group of some creators that we kind of like will bounce after we've gone through like this product ideation stage. We then go to like a little bit of like a brain trust, and we just go like, "What do
Mhm.
you think about this?" And they're really excited about it,
Good shit.
but I could say nothing about it.
Right, yeah. You get nothing.
Nothing.
Next question from Doing Work 99. Will we see Beacn at TwitchCon? Which the real question is, will anyone see anyone at TwitchCon? Because that bitch is getting canceled. There's no fucking way
You
that
think
thing's
so?
happening. Yeah.
You think so? What, you think
Yeah.
there's another wave and we're gonna get absolutely smashed by it?
You know, I'm half torn in between like it's going to get canceled. My fear is because they didn't say anything about refunds or cancellations or reschedules or what. They just said, "Yeah, we're going to do our best and we'll
Yeah.
we'll see what happens." So I'm worried, but then the other thing is like, okay, let's say they still throw it and then like 50% of the people that they thought are actually going to show up and then it's
Mhm.
not actually worth it. So I am of the belief that it is going to get canceled, but it's premature.
We have booked a booth. It is a cool booth. It will be bigger than the booths we had with previous situations, but it will not be. I know John wants like trapeze artists and cool stuff like that, but you know the
I do
money.
not want stop putting that on
um,
me.
but yeah, I think we're really excited to be there. I think it's a really cool experience. We always try and bring a couple of the people who have never gone before, especially the people who aren't streamers. It's really great for them to be able to go spend some time at the booth, talk to a bunch of customers, just go wander around and see all the crap that's happening and enjoy that. So yeah, we're definitely in the process. If they cancel it, well, then obviously we're shit out of luck. But right now, the goal is that yes, we will be there. For sure, John and me, and then there'll be probably 5 or 6 others. There's that question of, do you just shut the whole company down for 6 days and take everybody and just go bring your laptops and do what you can, but go have fun and kind of steep yourself in the whole culture of the thing and enjoy yourselves. We may do that as well, so we're not quite sure.
Next question from Red Bearded Joe, by the way. We got 4 more questions. Why
All
does
right.
Beacn software have a beta toggle? It's not used. Will it ever be used? And should we just disable it?
We just want to see how many people click it.
It's the only metric we capture at all is just
How
number
many
of
people
beta
opt into
ticks.
beta?
Yeah. 7. Yeah, it's there for a reason. We want to have kind of a 3 to 4 stage beta. So the goal being that beta toggle is the last beta after a couple of other internal betas. So they're sort of we do one in house. A build comes out in house. Somebody like Tyler will do the sort of pre-qualification on it. Like, are the things that are supposed to be fixed in this, or are the features that we've supposed to added to it, are they working? Have things actually gotten to the point where we think they are working properly? Then that goes to like an internal beta group through the Discord, where that just exposes us to a bunch of hardware and things that we just can't account for internally. There's just no way that you can do that, without having 5,000 computers to try and emulate the whole thing on. So we push that out there to a smaller group. I think, John, how many people are in there now? It's like 80 or 100 or something like that are, maybe it's smaller. I
In
don't
our
know, but
beta
it's in.
testing group,
Yeah.
like 50 to 60.
Okay. So it's like in that kind of range, and that kind of gives us the sanity check of like, should this go to an open beta? The open beta is the opt-in beta in the app. And so in the future, what'll happen is that if you have that ticked, you will get the build prior to someone else who doesn't have it ticked, but knowing full well that this is also a test of whether or not this might break on something that we haven't been able to account for, and so that will potentially bring you the new features and the new fixes, but also there be dragons a little bit there. So it's sort of that last level of qualification, and then once it passes through that and things have gone well, then that build gets pushed to the last group, which is the live software that everyone would get.
Yeah. I think, one thing I'll just add to that is just, like the reminder of like we launched the products like kind of where we knew that they would be viable for so many people, but very rarely, if ever, do you launch what's called a complete product in the sense like it doesn't get new features, it doesn't get new things. And so you'll notice that there's a few interactions and things in there that are laying like the groundwork and the framework for future things to come. That beacon
Mhm.
toggle is one of those things. So
I don't normally have chat open. I had it during the Q&A just in case there was some extra things. And doing work saying Beacn only, Discord beta, knackers eventually, then public beta, then production. It's funny because I think my gaming PC is on point is like 1.4 something, and then my streaming PC is on the latest 1.6 something. It's just like there would just be a random day where I'm like, okay, it's time to go update this one. So it's a meme and it's funny, but I don't appreciate it.
it's a meme and it's funny, but at the same time, it is one of those points, like data points that we use to validate of like, are we good enough to like launch? Is like,
Yeah.
because if our beta testers aren't actively updating and they aren't reporting bugs, it means that they're in a stable, happy spot and they're not looking for their updates, and it's the
Mhm.
features that they're that they would potentially gain are not worth them going into the Discord, uninstalling the old version, installing the new version, and doing that manual Discord aspect. So it's also a little bit of a temperature gauge for us, as
Wow.
far as are the features that are in right now functional enough and stable enough. Now, if we have people who aren't updating because they're worried that all their stuff is going to break again, that's a different thing. But for the most, and there's probably a bit of that too. But if we're not hearing about like I can't do this feature, I can't do this thing, then it just means that like I don't want to be inconvenienced by installing this next beta because I've like everything I have right now is working fine. So that is not necessarily a bad data point.
I've never thought about it that way. That's crazy. That is super insightful as well, because like you think you think that pushing out more updates and getting more people involved and like getting people to update is the key to like, oh yeah, well, no, we're doing good. But also people not updating is also can kind of be a good thing as well.
It can be, but you have to watch that. Like you definitely have to watch like in a beta server where people are there to beta test.
Yeah.
And largely everybody there is early adopters and everything. It just means, generally that's a little bit safer. Now, if you notice that a lot of your user base isn't updating to those things, then usually it means like they don't trust it.
Mhm.
And you obviously want to address that the best that you can.
So I
Uh,
don't have to update ever is what you're saying.
you don't have to be in the internal Discord, and you can just go to public beta.
Okay,
You can just go
okay,
to
I
Yeah.
didn't say that. Jesus, you're like, wait a minute. Hold on.
I want to sit in the restaurant. I just don't want to eat the food.
That was the deathiest death stare that I've ever gotten from John ever. All right, next question from Bishop GP. Do you guys know about the Knackers NDA meme? What do you think about it? You
I do not know about the Knackers NDA
you
meme.
don't, and
Bring me up
nobody
to speed.
does, because it's not really a meme. It's just that like when I got on board with you guys, it was one of the first times that I'd really been involved with somebody at like the semi ground floor, right? Like actually working with the company at the beta testing. And so Bishop and the gentleman that I do a podcast with, Middle Age Dream, they would always ask me about what I'm doing, or I would always say what I was doing. I was so scared at breaking NDA that I wouldn't say a goddamn thing about
I
anything.
know.
And there was one time where I had a tweet that I didn't intentionally skim the NDA contract, but like KickedTripod sent me a message like, "Hey, did you mean this when you said this?" And I went, "Oh no. Oh God." And I like from then point on, absolutely terrified about saying anything about anything. I don't care if you guys have tweeted about it. I don't care if there's already been a fucking panel where you guys have talked about it in detail. I don't say shit until it is like in public release notes. And so they kept making fun of me because every time I would talk about it, I'd be like, okay, I can't say anything about it. Even though it was something simple, like what color is the mic? I can't say
Oh,
it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, does it come in white? Be like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
allowed to stream with it, but I can't tell you it will come in white. This could be a blue dress or a gold dress.
Don't you even start with that. Oh my God.
I showed it to my kid for the first time the other day, and he saw blue, black, and I was like, "But I
That's
see
the correct
gold,
answer.
white."
It is the
See,
correct answer. It's also
see,
what I
there,
saw.
see, yeah, see, and me and him don't see it the same, so that was a weird discussion. It's like, well, it's not your 9, but you're gonna have to live in the treehouse from now on.
There's your topical pop culture for the day, by the way. Chat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Read the 2015 memes.
Hey, it came up on Reddit the other day on a
It did, actually.
new Reddit. Yeah, that's why I brought it up to my kid, because I was like, oh yeah, that thing.
The second to last question was a follow-up to when is 4800 hertz coming. We're just going to skip that one. Sorry, Top Gunner.
I can't wait to put 4800 hertz should totally go in there and be like,
oh, sorry, 48,000.
Yeah.
Whoops.
This is
Audio
the most
professional.
lo-fi version of the mic.
Last question from Ginja. Hey, can you share the features on the roadmap are being worked on sequentially? Ginja, if you don't go back to high school and learn how to type a sentence.
Oh, hey, Ginja is like 16 or something and is smart as fuck.
Too smart. We have to get rid of him. He is too fucking smart.
He actually is, I think, one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Yeah, he's.
I don't even say that. I just like, he blows my mind with stuff that he comes up with, and so he's been in our beta group for a while. He's like written like scripts for things that we didn't even think about. He's like, hey, look at this. It's just like,
made this do this automatically.
Yeah, I made this do this, and like
so shout out to Ginja for sure.
Hell yeah.
The thing I love about Ginja too is that like when we get feedback, for beta, he puts it in a document and he formats the document and exports it as a PDF. So it's just like really easy to sift through and everything. It's just like so much attention to detail.
A lot of people could learn a lot of things from his feedback for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sequentially on the roadmap, I'm not sure that they will be sequential. I think it will really come down to like if we run into a wall on one thing that we feel like is going to delay several others, that we might go and tackle those others to get those done and then go back to the thing that caused us the consternation.
I can say we've shifted our developments. Like the first 2 months have been all of our updates and stuff were focused 100% on stability and just making sure that, the app is stable, you trust it to press the things. We've still got some work to do there. But largely we're, able, I think, I can count on, 1 or 2 hands, the amount of people who, we've sat down with and, troubleshot and haven't got them to like an incredibly stable spot. And if that is you, go to Discord, beacn.gg/Discord, join and let us help troubleshoot you so we can get you fixed, because that is really valuable information. But right now we're kind of transitioning to the next phase where we're still focused on stability, but we're kind of sprinkling in some of that low-hanging, not low-hanging fruit, but those kind of trivial quality of life features that people are going to really love, but aren't risky to like the integrity of the rest of the app, and kind of go like, well, what the hell went wrong? So like I said, like even this coming week, next week to 2 weeks, we'll see a Twitch VOD track, which is going to be really awesome for people who, need to have a different recording track from a streaming track. And then we will also have the knob on the Beacn Mix Create is its own dedicated mute mode. So pretty neat.
Awesome. Well, my friends, that is the end of the Q&A, and that is also the end of the podcast. I cannot thank you enough for taking this much time out of a Sunday evening to come over and just talk about all this shit. I am somebody who thoroughly enjoys like the background story, the journey to where you guys got, and for you all to also share what's going on currently and kind of like the thought process that are going into different things. I think the people that genuinely care about the product and the team. I think it's awesome insight for them to have into like what you guys do from day to day and like the things that you struggle with. And maybe there's other folks out there too that are like in a similar situation. They're working with a company or a product. So for you guys to be vulnerable enough to come on and talk about that stuff, I think is super, super cool. Selfishly, I appreciate it very much for you guys just entertaining me and my questions, but also the community and their questions as well. So thank you both so very much for coming on to the podcast and talking shop. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was really
It was a
fun.
ton of
I
fun.
appreciate you having us. Yeah.
Good shit. All right, so real quick, if you guys just want to like do the sign off, feel free to sell yourself, say anything about Beacn, yourself, anything you have cool coming up, any content. Now's the time. Craig, we'll start with you.
Well, we touched on it briefly, but we legitimately are going to be hunting for a senior software developer to that be our next big hire is somebody like that. And we know that there is tons of talent all around the world. Maybe it's cool if they're in Canada or if they're in Victoria, but if they're not, that doesn't necessarily matter. So that's something that we're throwing out there that if somebody is interested, they can ping us at careers@beacn.com and tell us why they would want to be part of our amazing group, because we have an amazing group that we'd like to make amazinger and be able to pump out some more of these software things faster for everybody. So that's my announcement.
As for me, you can follow me on Twitter at KickedTripod if you want to follow me. I think I'm going to be changing my tag pretty quick because I don't really do KickedTripod thing anymore. I just do all my normal stuff there. So, we'll kind of see how that goes. So that might be outdated. But yeah, if you want to buy Beacn Mix crates from me for 10% above cost, just DM me. And just kidding.
Backofjohnsvan.com.
Could you imagine? I need 2 more Beacn Mix crates to test, Craig.
Yeah.
Apparently, John has all of the plushies that are for sale.
Yeah. KickedTripod everywhere. I love talking about audio stuff. So you'll notice on Twitter, I just like I just kind of like regurgitate audio convos and threads and stuff. So definitely feel free to engage me, ask any questions. I'll love talking about it. And I'm on this podcast, so apparently I'll talk with anyone.
Oh my God. I'll remember
I'm
that.
way more boring on Twitter. That's why I don't, say mine out loud. 'Cause I'm like, look at me camping. Like, woo.
All right, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Crocs and Hot Pockets podcast. This podcast will be back in 1 week with both Bishop GP and Middle Age Stream for episode 176. For all of you that tuned in live, you guys are fantastic. Thank you for keeping the chat alive. Thank you for submitting your questions both in the chat and on Twitter. It was a fantastic time. And to both you guys, thank you both so much for joining me for this podcast. I regret to
inform you.
So
Melons is what brings us together today.
As highly as I spoke of this podcasting platform, I forgot to hit record in Riverside FM before we started the podcast. So this podcast will be a direct rip of my local OBS recording or of the Twitch live. I'm so pissed. It was like an hour and a half in, and I look at the in the bottom right corner, it says, "Hey, you can close this page now. It's finished uploading." And I'm thinking, how the fuck is that possible? It usually doesn't finish uploading until after it's done. Oh, I never hit record.
I was gonna
we're
ask
from the future.
about, because it's like your recording status will appear here and it's gray.
Yep, I forgot. I forgot.
You and 2 others. 000000.
8 years of streaming. I still can't get this shit right. All right, chat. You all have a fantastic night. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon. Take care and eat pizza with pineapple on it. Okay. All right. See you later. Goodbye.